and we're being recorded. All right. I think we're going. So, welcome everybody to the Table Read Tuesday of Psycho, the movie that made the slasher film genre popular. The movie that the studios were too afraid to back because of how much it pushed the boundaries of the time that Alfred Hitchcock funded it himself. It was about $800 and something thousand, and it's the movie of his that was the most box office successful. It made like $50 million for that time, which would be like $400 million for our time. So huge. And they set all these things in place, so you can't go into the theater late. If you got there, they wouldn't let you in. There's some twists and turns in this movie if anybody hasn't read it, and they tried to keep those secret, but those were leaked by like the Hollywood Reporter or different people. And like before this movie, he made other movies in color, but this movie is black and white because he was doing it on his own budget, and he had to keep it under $1 million, and so it was cheaper at the time. And he felt that it was right for how, I guess, gruesome it is. Like that would be hard for people to watch in color, especially at that time. So we will get started, and we'll go around the Zoom gallery real quick and let everybody introduce themselves. And we'll have Vicki, please.
Hello, everyone. I'm Vicki Dykes. Tonight I'll be reading Caroline and Lila. I actually haven't seen this movie. I've seen crucial moments, actually a few times. I've heard Alfred Hitchcock in an interview talking about the movie, but I haven't seen it. So I probably will watch it after doing this tonight.
All right, sorry for spoiling some of the things for you.
Pardon me.
And, I had something else I was going to say, but I forgot. So we'll continue. I'll be reading the role of Sam. I'm Jacob Patrick. And Mary.
Hi, Mary Armstrong. I'll be reading the role of Mary. I'm a Calgary voice and film actor, and I was reading the script this morning. I flew back into Calgary this morning. I was out of town, and I was just spellbound. I read about half of it on the plane, and the descriptions, there's something else in this. It's really good.
That's awesome. And to note for other screenwriters and looking at the script, again, older scripts look a little different than newer scripts, and this one in particular, we found a few different versions, and there was other one that had probably the proper text font, but it was so hard to read because it was degraded, so we're choosing this one for anyone else. Heather Leigh Cameron.
Hello, my name is Heather Leigh Cameron. I'm a writer, I'm an actor, and I'm a filmmaker, self-producer. I will be reading Mrs. Chambers and Woman Customer. I'm looking forward to performing this. I too have never seen it, but maybe I'll watch it after this. I don't know. I'm just going to have some fun with this tonight.
Awesome. Don.
I am Don Lampasone. I'm reading 3-4 parts, Lowery, Patrolman, Mechanic, and some action description second half. And I do edit and shoot for a living. I wish it was more features and film type stuff, but you know, it's the corporate and political.
It will be soon.
It will be. Yeah. Who knows? But this has been fun. Glad to do it again.
Awesome. And Angelina.
Hi, I'm Angelina Peterson, and I'll be reading for Simon and Policeman. And I'm happy to be here. I've watched Psycho a long time ago, but this will be interesting. I'm looking forward to following along with the screenplay.
Yeah, totally. Andy.
I am Andy Hogan, and I'm reading parts of Summerfield and Sheriff Chamberlain. And this is my second time reading with you, and I'm looking forward to it. I love Psycho. I love most of Hitchcock's works, and this is one of his best by far. So,
yeah, he's awesome.
It was great actually reading through the script and seeing how that illustrated a lot of the work he did. And I mentioned to Toni, it made me more aware of how much he told his stories with the camera. It was amazing.
Totally. Rylan.
I am Rylan Nelson. I am also based in Calgary, Alberta myself as well. I'm a actor, voice actor, and I will be portraying Norman Bates today, which is an incredibly huge honor because not only have I seen Psycho a million times, it happens to be my favorite movie of all time. And so I'm going to have a lot of fun with this. I'll put it that way. I'm not trying to gloat or anything, but I'm going to barely be looking at the script for this because I've literally got pretty much the whole movie memorized already.
Awesome. That's so awesome. All right. And then Toni.
Hello, I'm Toni Flora. I am reading the narration or parts of the narration today. Thank you, Don, for jumping in on that. I'm excited to share the role with you. And I'm reading a couple of small parts, Arbogast and the district attorney. So looking forward to it. Thank you.
Awesome. And with that, we will get started.
Did you do Chance?
Oh, I didn't. I was going to go by Chance and my screen's remaneuvered. Thank you, Toni.
Sure.
Sorry, Chance. Please, Chance.
No problem. Actually, like Andy, I love Psycho. Loved it for the first time I've seen it. I've seen it dozens of times. I just watched it a couple of weeks ago. And I like Alfred Hitchcock's. I'm a huge movie fan. If I don't watch the movie many times, eventually I just end up buying it on DVD anyway and keeping it in my library. So I really enjoy the movie. I think I've got like 4 or 5 smaller parts, and I'm really interested to see how the mother's voice goes, because that's what I auditioned for. That's one of my favorite parts of the movie, when he falls into his mother's psyche and he becomes his mother and he has her voice. So that'll be interesting to do that.
Spoilers.
Spoil it, Chance.
Maybe
if you haven't seen the movie, watch it. You'll dig it. It's a cool flick.
Well, okay, to be fair, it's one of those movies that everybody knows the plot twist by now, but it's still worth watching. It's not like the plot twist is the whole point of watching it.
Yeah, and it has been 60 years or so, so if you haven't seen it.
Wait a minute. Should I mention the new one?
Yeah, go ahead and talk about it.
No, I was just going to, anyone compare them, the old
I haven't. I think I stayed away from it.
The new movie, the better.
The newer one was more bloody than the original, which kind of took away from the whole concept. It's like, the older films, you have to use more of your imagination. It's not as visual. And that's what makes the movie so great, is because, and if you look at how they make the movie, the scene in the shower, what they use to create the effect of the blood and stuff, really, really cool stuff.
Yeah. Since you mentioned that already, I will mention it to make it less gruesome for people. I'm sure most here know it, but for the blood in the movie, since he knew it was black and white, he used chocolate syrup, like ice cream syrup, chocolate syrup for the blood. So, and then another thing, like we read Jaws recently, we talked about how like iconic that music is. And like Vicki, you said you haven't seen it, a few others haven't seen it here, but I'm sure you guys have heard the music. And now that like anybody who hasn't even seen the movie, yeah, exactly. Rylan's moving to it. Just like this movie affected.
With 2 notes.
Yes. So, all right. Now that everybody has had a chance to introduce themselves, we'll get into this script that changed cinema. Psycho.
You're not going to talk about the one shocking moment that never happened before in a movie, though?
Please. Well,
Flushing a toilet.
Do we? If it's a spoiler or not? What?
No, the flushing of a toilet.
Oh, even a toilet being seen.
We had never seen a toilet flushing in a movie.
Right.
Before.
Yeah.
They felt that was too dirty or something you don't want to see on movies. Yeah. So pushing all the envelopes.
Know what was coming after that? Anyway, sorry. I'll let us go now.
All right. And third time's the charm. Are you ready, Toni?
I am ready. Are you guys ready?
Everybody else ready? Yeah.
When you are.
All right, here we go.
Psycho by Joseph Stefano, based on the novel by Robert Bloch, for educational purposes only. Revised December 1st, 1959. Converted to PDF by Screen Talk Online. http://www.screentalk.org. Psycho. Fade in. Exterior, Phoenix, Arizona, day, helicopter shot. Above Midtown section of the city. It is early afternoon, a hot midsummer day. The city is sun-blanched white, and its drifted-up noises are muted in their own echoes. We fly low, heading in a downstream direction, passing over traffic-clogged streets, parking lots, white business buildings, neatly patterned residential districts. As we approach downtown section, the character of the city begins to change. It is darker and shabby with age and industry. We see railroad tracks, smokestacks, wholesale fruit and vegetable markets, old municipal buildings, empty lots. The very geography seems to give us a climate of nefariousness, of backdoorness, dark and shadowy, and secret. We fly lower and faster now, as if seeking out a specific location. A skinny, high-old hotel comes into view. On its exposed brick side, great painted letters advertise transients, low weekly rates, radio in every room. We pause long enough to establish the shoddy character of this hotel. Its open, curtainless windows, its silent, resigned look so characteristic of such hole and corner hotels. We move forward with purposefulness toward a certain window. The sash is raised as high as it can go, but the shade is pulled down from 3 or 4 inches of the inside sill, as if the occupants of the room within wanted privacy but needed air. We are close now, so that only the lower half of the window frame is in shot. No sounds come from within the room. Suddenly, we tip downward, go to the narrow space between the shade and sill, peep into the room. A young woman is stretched out on the mussed bed. She wears a full slip, stockings, no shoes. She lies in an attitude of physical relaxation, but her face, seen in the dimness of the room, betrays a certain inner tension, worrisome conflicts. She is Mary Crane, an attractive girl nearing the end of her 20s and her rope. A man stands beside the bed, only the lower half of his figure visible. We hold on this tableau for a long moment, then start forward. As we pass under the window shade, cut to interior, the hotel room, day. A small room, a slow fan buzzing on a shelf above the narrow bed. A card of hotel rules is pasted on the mirror above the bureau. An unopened suitcase and a woman's large straw open-top handbag are on the bureau. On the table beside the bed, there are a container of Coca-Cola and an unwrapped, untouched egg salad sandwich. There is no radio. The man standing by the bed, wearing only trousers, t-shirt, and socks, is Sam Lomas, a good-looking, sensual man with warm, humorous eyes and a compelling smile. He is blotting his neck and face with a thin towel and is staring down at Mary, a small, sweet smile playing about his mouth. Mary keeps her face turned away from him. After a moment, Sam drops the towel, sits on the bed, leans over and takes Mary into his arms, kisses her long and warmly, holds her with a firm possessiveness. The kiss is distributed and finally interrupted by the buzzing closeness of an inconsiderate fly. Sam smiles, pulls away enough to allow Mary to relax again against the pillow. He studies her, frowns at her unresponsiveness, then speaks in a low, intimate, playful voice.
Never did eat your lunch, did you?
Mary looks at his smile, has to respond, pulls him to her, kisses him. Then, and without breaking the kiss, she swings her legs over the side of the bed, toe searches around, finds her shoes, slips her feet into them, and finally pulls away and sits up.
I better get back to the office. These extended lunch hours give my boss excess acid.
She rises, goes to the bureau, takes a pair of small earrings out of her bag, begins putting them on, not bothering or perhaps not wanting to look at herself in the mirror. Sam watches her, concerned but unable to inhibit his cheery, humorous good mood. Throughout the remainder of this scene, they occupy themselves with dressing, hair combing, etc.
Call your boss and tell him you're taking the rest of the afternoon off. It's Friday anyways, and it's hot.
What do I do with my free afternoon? Walk you to the airport?
We could laze around here a while longer.
Checking out time's 3 p.m. Hotels of this sort aren't interested in you when you come in, but when your time's up. Sam, I hate having to be with you in a place like this.
I've heard of married couples who deliberately spend occasional nights in cheap hotels. They say it.
When you're married, you can do a lot of things deliberately.
You sure talk like a girl who's been married.
Sam.
I'm sorry, Mary. My old dad used to say, when you can't change a situation, laugh at it. Nothing ridicules a thing like laughing at it.
I've lost my girlish laughter.
The only girlish thing you have lost?
Sam, this is the last time.
For what?
This. Meeting you in secret so we can be secretive. You come down here on business trips and we steal lunch hours, and I wish you wouldn't even come.
Okay, what do we do instead? Write each other lurid love letters?
I haven't time to argue. I'm a working girl.
And I'm a working man. We're a regular working class tragedy.
It is tragic, or it will be, if we go on meeting in shabby hotels whenever you can find a tax-deductible excuse for flying down here.
You can't laugh at it, huh?
Can you?
Sure. It's like laughing through a broken jaw, but...
He breaks off. His cheeriness dissolved. Goes to the window, tries to raise the shade. It sticks. He pulls at it. It comes down entirely, and the hot sun glares into the room, revealing it all in its shabbiness and sordidness, as if corroborating Mary's words and attitude. Excuse me. Sam kicks at the fallen shade, laughs in frustration, grabs on to his humor again.
And besides, when you say I make a tax-deductible excuse, you make me out a criminal.
You couldn't be a criminal if you committed a major crime.
I wish I were. Not an active criminal, but a nice guy with a conscience of a criminal. Next best thing to no conscience at all.
I have to go, Sam.
I can come down next week.
No.
Not even just to see you, to have lunch in public?
We can see each other. We can even have dinner, but respectably. In my house with my mother's picture on the mantle and my sister helping me broil a big steak for 3.
And after the steak, do we send sister to the movies and turn mama's picture to the wall?
Sam, no.
All right.
She stares at him, surprised at his willingness to continue the affair on her terms, as girls are so often surprised when they discover men will continue to want them, even after the sexual bait has been pulled in. Sam smiles reassuringly, places his hands gently on her arms, speaks with gentle and simple sincerity.
Mary, whenever it's possible, tax deductible or not, I want to see you. And under any conditions, even respectably.
You make respectability sound disrespectful.
I'm all for it. It requires patience, temperance, and a lot of sweating out. Otherwise, though, it's only hard work. But if I can see you, touch you, even as simply as this, I won't mind.
He moves away, and again, the weight of his pain and problems crushes away his good humor. There is a quiet moment.
I'm fed up with sweating for people who aren't there. I sweat to pay off my father's debt, and he's in his grave. I sweat to pay off my ex-wife's alimony, and she's living on some other side of the world somewhere.
I pay too. They also pay who meet in hotel rooms.
A couple of years, and the debts will all be paid off. And if she ever remarries, the alimony stops, and then...
I haven't even been married once yet.
Yeah, but when you do, you'll swing.
Sam, let's go get married.
And live with me in a storeroom behind a hardware store in Fairville? We have a lot of laughs when I send my ex-wife her money, and you can lick the stamps.
I'll lick the stamps.
He looks at her, long, pulls her close, kisses her lightly, looks out the window and stares at the wide sky.
You know what I'd like? A clear, empty sky, and a plane, and us in it, and somewhere a private island for sale, where we can run around without our shoes on, and the wherewithal to buy what I'd like. How's that sound, Mary? Oh, Mary, you want to cut this off? Go out and find yourself someone available?
I'm thinking of it.
How can you even think of a thing like that?
Don't miss your plane.
Hey, we can leave together, can't we?
I'm late, and you have to put your shoes on.
Mary goes out quickly, closing the door behind her. As Sam stares down to his shoeless feet, cut to exterior downtown street, day, high angle. Shooting down at hotel entrance. Mary comes out, walks quickly to a parked cab, gets in. The cab zooms up the awful street. Dissolve to exterior, Lowery real estate office, day. A small, moderately successful office off the main street. A cab pulls up at the curb. We see Mary get out of the cab, pay the driver, cross pavement to the office door. Interior, outer office, day. Mary enters the office, crosses to her desk, sits down, rubs her temples, finally looks over at Caroline, a girl in the last of her teens.
Isn't Mr. Lowery back from lunch?
Oh, he's lunching with the man who's buying the Harris Street property. You know, that oil lease man. So that's why he's late. You getting a headache?
It'll pass. Headaches are like resolutions. You forget them as soon as they stop hurting.
You got aspirins? I have something, not aspirins, but my mother's doctor gave these to me the day of my wedding. Oh, Teddy was furious when he found out I'd taken tranquilizers.
She rises, starts for Mary's desk, pills in hand.
Were there any calls?
Teddy called. Me and my mother called to see if Teddy called. Oh, and your sister called to say she's going to Tuscan to do some buying, and she'll be gone the whole weekend. And
she breaks off, distracted by the sound of the door opening. Mr. Lowery and his oil lease client, Tom Cassidy, enter the office. Lowery is a pleasant, worry-faced man, big and a trifle pompous. Cassidy is very loud and has a lunch hour load on. He is a gross man, exuding a kind of pitiful vulgarity.
And Chance, would you like to read Tom Cassidy? You're
Sorry,
mute.
I was on mute. I apologize. Sorry. Wow, hot as fresh milk. You girls should get your boss to air condition you up. He could afford it today.
Lowery flashes an embarrassed smile at Mary, tries to lead Cassidy toward the private office.
Mary, will you get those copies of the deed ready for Mr. Cassidy?
Cassidy pauses beside Mary's desk, hooks a hunch to the desktop, smiles a wet smile at Mary.
Tomorrow's the day, my sweet little girl. Not you, my daughter, a baby. And tomorrow she stands up there and gets her sweet self married away from me. I want you to look at my baby, 18 years old, and she's never had an unhappy day in any one of those years.
Mary glances, cannot bring herself to smile or make some remark, continues sorting out the deed copies, tries to ignore the man's hot breath closeness.
Come on, Tom. My office is air conditioned.
You know what I do with unhappiness? I buy it off. You unhappy?
Not inordinately.
I'm buying this house for my baby's wedding present. $40,000 cash. Now that ain't buying happiness. That's buying off unhappiness. That's penniless punk she's marrying. Probably a good kid. It's just that I hate him. Yep, 40,000 says here. Cash-a-rooney.
He takes out of his inside pocket 2 separate bundles of new $100 bills and throws them onto the desk under Mary's nose. Caroline's eyes go wide at the sight of the glorious green bundles of bills, and she comes close to the desk. Cassidy leans terribly close to Mary, flicks through the bills, laughs wickedly.
I never carry more than I can afford to lose. Count them.
Tom, cash transactions of this size, most irregular.
So what? It's my private money. And now it's yours.
I declare.
I don't. That's how I'm able to keep it.
Suppose we just put this in the safe and then Monday morning, then you're feeling good.
Speaking of feeling good, where's that bottle you said you had in your desk? Whoops. Usually I keep my mouth shut.
He rises, reels toward Lowery's office, pauses, turns, speaks to Mary meaningfully.
Honest, I can keep my private transactions a secret. Lowery, I'm dying of thirst to Rooney.
Lowery starts after him, pauses, turns to Mary. Cassidy has gone into Lowery's office.
I don't even want it in the office over the weekend. Put it in the safe deposit box at the bank, Mary. And we'll get him to give us a check on Monday instead.
He starts quickly away when it looks like Cassidy is going to come and pull him bodily into the office. When the men are gone and the door is closed, Caroline picks up a bundle, smiles at it.
He was flirting with you. I guess he noticed my wedding ring.
Mary has put one bundle into a large envelope and takes the other from Caroline. When the bills are away, she puts the filled envelope in her handbag, notices the remaining deed copies on her desk, picks them up, goes to the private office door, knocks, starts to open the door as...
Come in.
Interior Lowery's private office day. Mary opens the door, looks in. Cassidy is drinking from a large tumbler, winks at her without pausing in his drinking. Mary remains on threshold a moment, then crosses to the desk, talking as she goes.
The copies, Mr. Lowery, if you don't mind. I'd like to go right on home after the bank. I have a slight...
You go right home. Me and your boss are gonna out ourselves a little drinking done. Right?
Of course. You feeling ill?
A headache.
You need a weekend in Las Vegas, playground of the world.
I'm going to spend this weekend in bed.
Only playground that beats Las Vegas.
Mary goes back out into the outer office, closes the door. Interior outer office day. Mary goes to her desk, takes the handbag, checks to make sure money-filled envelope is tucked well down into it. During this...
Are you going to take the pills? They'll knock that headache out.
I don't need pills, just sleep.
She goes to the door. Dissolve, interior Mary's bedroom day. A double bed in the foreground. We just see the far side as the camera shoots across. Mary enters the scene, clad only in her slip. Perhaps she's about to get into bed. Behind her is an open closet, but too dark inside for us to see any contents. As Mary turns to the closet, the camera lowers to show a close view of the $40,000 in the envelope on our side of the bed. Mary takes a dress from the closet and starts to put it on as the camera retreats to reveal a packed but not yet closed suitcase also on the bed. Mary zips up her dress and then brings some final garments from the closet. She comes around to the suitcase and puts them on the top. Mary works with haste and intention as if acting on an impulse which might vanish as quickly as it came. The suitcase is filled now. She checks around the room, then takes her handbag to the bed, puts in the money-filled envelope, and then slams the suitcase shut. She then looks at her small bedroom desk, goes to it, removes a small file envelope from one of the drawers. It is one of those brown envelopes in which one keeps important papers and policies and certificates. She checks its contents briefly, puts it on the bed, opens another desk drawer, takes out her bank book, tosses it on the bed. She then packs both the file envelope and the bank book into her handbag, takes one last look around the room, picks up the handbag and the suitcase, and goes out from the room. Cut to exterior Mary's garage day. A two-car garage. One car is gone. Mary's car is parked in the driveway. The camera is low enough so that we can easily read the Arizona number plate in the foreground. Mary comes out of the house, starts for the trunk, intending to put the suitcase in, changes her mind, places the suitcase and her handbag on the front seat, gets in, starts the car, begins to back out of the driveway. Dissolve to exterior Main Street in Midtown Phoenix day. We are close on Mary's car, shooting in and her trouble guilty face. She seems to be driving with that excess care of one who does not wish to be stopped for a minor traffic irregularity. She stops for a red light at a main intersection. From Mary's viewpoint, day. We can see Lowery and Cassidy crossing the street, passing right in front of Mary's car. Mary's car, day. Mary freezes. Exterior Main Street in Midtown Phoenix, day. Cassidy, glancing into the car, sees Mary, lets out a cheery exclamation, elbows Lowery. Lowery turns, sees Mary, smiles pleasantly, pulls Cassidy on. Mary's car, day. Mary watches the entire exchange with a look of stony horror on her face. Exterior Main Street in Midtown Phoenix, day. Now we look closely at Lowery. As he reaches the curb, a small confusion brightens his face. He remembers that Mary intended to spend the weekend in bed. He considers curiously, turns, looks back at her, a slight frown on his face. Mary's car, day. Mary sees the pause and the look. Exterior Main Street in Midtown Phoenix, day. For a moment, it even looks as if Lowery might be meaning to cross back to the car. Mary's car, day. Mary's tension is unbearable. And at the moment we hear the shrill shriek of the traffic cop's whistle, Mary zooms the car away. Dissolve to exterior highway, day. Mary in car driving safely away from town. Her look is less tense now and more purposeful. After a moment, she checks the fuel gauge, frowns, looks along the highway for a gas station. Fast dissolve to Mary's car, day, approaching and leaving city limits. Mary, day, looks at gas gauge. Close-up gas gauge, day. Exterior, a gas station, day. We see Mary's car drive in, come to a stop. There are no other cars about, this being a gas station off the main highway, and the attendant is obviously in the shack. Mary looks worried about having to make this stop, keeps her face turned away from the shack, not wishing it to be seen. No one comes, and for a moment, Mary considers driving on, as if the emptiness of the station were a warning, an omen that she should listen to. But the gas register's almost empty. She has to blow her horn. A young man comes out of the shack, starts toward her car. At that moment, we hear the ringing of the telephone in the shack. The attendant walks a few steps further toward Mary's car, then decides to go back and answer the phone. The phone's insistent ringing unnerves Mary. She starts her car, zooms off. We see the attendant, phone in hand, in the doorway of the shack. He looks after the departing car with little or no expression. Car. The car grows smaller as it races up the road. The sun is setting. There is something vaguely ominous about the darkening sky into which the car seems to be disappearing. Dissolve to Mary in car, night. The oncoming headlights hurt Mary's eyes. She is getting sleepy and her vision is blurring. Her eyes close involuntarily, snap open again. She stretches, then wide, as if forcing them to stay open. The oncoming lights seem to glare to a point beyond endurance. She murmurs, Sam, Sam. A long lap dissolve, exterior road shoulder, dawn. We see Mary's car, dim in the early dawn, tilted on the soft shoulder of the road, looking somehow sad and pathetic like a child's thrown away toy. And from this angle, it would appear that the car is empty. After a moment during which there are no other vehicles passing, we see, coming from a far distance, a highway patrolman and a patrol car. He passes Mary's car, notices its apparent emptiness, U-turns, comes back up behind the car. He gets out and approaches the driver's side window. Exterior Mary's car, dawn. The patrolman looks down into the car. Interior car, dawn, from his viewpoint. Mary turns with a start, sits up, is startled and unnerved by the sight of the patrolman, and, as if by automatic reflex, turns the ignition and presses down on the start. Exterior car, dawn. The patrolman holds up his hand.
Hold it there.
Mary slams down on the brake, tries to pull herself together. The patrolman raps again, less gently. Reluctantly, Mary rolls down the window. The patrolman studies her for a moment.
In quite a hurry.
Yes. I didn't mean to sleep so long. I was afraid I'd have an accident last night from sleepiness, so I decided to pull over.
You slept here all night?
Yes. As I said, I couldn't keep my eyes.
There are plenty of motels in this area. You should have, just to be safe.
I didn't intend to sleep all night. I just pulled over. Have I broken any laws?
No, ma'am.
Then I'm free to go?
Is anything wrong?
Of course not. Am I acting as if something's wrong?
Frankly, yes.
Please, I'd like to go.
Is there...
Is there what? I've told you there's nothing wrong, except that I'm in a hurry and you're taking up my time.
Now, wait just a moment. Turn your motor off, please.
Mary seems about to object, thinks better of it, turns off the ignition.
In the course of my duty, I never take up anyone's time, whether it's to give a warning or a ticket or help. Believe that, ma'am. Now, if you woke up on the wrong side of the car seat, that's one thing. But when you act as if I've just placed you under arrest...
I'm sorry.
No need to apologize or any apologies.
Mary starts the car, her face turned as if she wishes the matter were all settled and the patrolman has already gone. The patrolman isn't exactly one of those civil servants who demands a thank you, but he does feel her manner is a bit too abrupt. He calls.
Wait a minute.
Now what?
The patrolman gazes at her a moment, then.
May I see your license?
Why?
Please.
Mary pulls her handbag up from the floor where she'd placed it when she stretched out for sleep. She puts her hand in it, rummages for her wallet, cannot find it. The patrolman is staring at her. She glances at him nervously, pokes in her bag a bit more, sighs, realizes she'll have to remove some of its contents. Nervously, badly controlling her fear, she takes out the money-filled envelope and then the important papers envelope, then a couple of other items, places them on the seat. Finally finds her wallet, opens it, hands it to him. He looks at the wallet, then at the car. Exterior road shoulder, dawn. The patrolman walks around to the front of the car, checks the license plate, and returns. Interior, Mary's car, dawn. The patrolman peers in, checks the car registration on the steering wheel, returns Mary's wallet. She takes it, looks at him for a flicker of a moment. He says nothing. She starts ahead, fast. Exterior road shoulder, dawn. The patrolman stares after Mary as she drives off, then starts back to his automobile. Mary in car, dawn. She is quite shaken, realizes she caused herself a great deal of trouble and placed herself in unnecessary danger. She is disturbed and angry and frightened at her inability to act normally under the pressure of guilt. As she drives, she glances into her rearview mirror. Mary's rearview mirror, dawn. The patrolman is following in his automobile, keeping behind her at a matched speed. Mary in car, dawn. She glances out at her surroundings. Mary's point of view, dawn. The freeway ahead. Mary's car, dawn. She suddenly turns off the highway. Mary in car, dawn. She checks her mirror. Mary's rearview mirror, dawn. The patrolman is no longer following, has not turned off after her. Mary in car, dawn. She breathes a sigh of relief, thinks a moment, makes a quick decision. Dissolve. Exterior used car lot, day. The big sign reads, California Charlie, Automobile Paradise. We see Mary's car drive onto the lot and stop. Mary gets out of the car, glances toward the lot office, turns her attention to the line of cars, notices the California license plates on all of them. The car dealer calls out from his office.
With you in a second.
Mary nods, starts walking along the line of cars as if making a selection. Her eye is caught by the iron newspaper stand on the corner just outside the lot. She stares at the papers, turns away, as if what she's fearing would have to be impossible. Then, having to satisfy herself, goes to the stand, drops a dime in the iron slot, picks up a Los Angeles newspaper, starts back into the car lot as she glances worried at the front page. As she goes, we see, coming up the street toward the lot, the same patrolman. He sees Mary, slows, swerves over to the opposite side of the street, stops by the curb. Mary, engrossed in the newspaper and walking back to the lot, does not see the patrolman. The car dealer is out on the lot now, standing and waiting for Mary. As she approaches, lost in her newspaper, he smiles.
I'm in no mood for trouble.
What?
Yeah, there's an old saying, first customer of the day is always looking for the most trouble. Well, like I said, I'm in no mood for trouble, so I'm just going to treat you just as fair and square as, so you won't be giving me one
Can I
week.
trade in my car and take another?
No, you can do anything you've got a mind to. And being a woman, you will. That yours?
Yes, there's nothing wrong with it. I'm just,
Sick of the sight of it. Well, suppose you look around for something that strikes your eyes, and meanwhile I'll have my mechanic give yours a once-over. You want some coffee? I'm just about to put on a pot.
No, thank you. I'm in a hurry. I just want to make a change and start.
She stops suddenly, almost with a gasp. She's seen the patrolman. The patrolman, Mary's point of view day. He is staring at her, his face dispassionate. Exterior used car lot day. Mary has to force herself to look away.
One thing people never ought to be when they're buying a used car, and that's in a hurry. But like I said, it's too nice a day to be arguing, so I'll just shoot this into the garage.
He starts into Mary's car. She looks at him, in near panic, wanting to skip the whole thing. Torn, wondering if the presence of the patrolman doesn't negate the value of changing cars. Wondering how she can get away. Wondering if she'll be followed, or if the patrolman will go away if she does stay there. All these panic fears rush her mind, and she can do nothing. The car dealer has driven her car into the garage. She stands in the middle of the lot, feeling like a shooting target. She looks toward the garage. The garage, Mary's point of view, day. Mary's car is in it. Exterior used car lot, day. Mary decides she cannot back out now without arousing further suspicion, is compelled to look again at the patrolman. The patrolman, Mary's point of view, day. He still watches. With self-angry sigh of resentment, she goes to a close car, looks at it. The car dealer is returning.
That's the one I'd pick for you myself.
How much?
Go ahead, spin it around the block. Now, I know you don't know anything about engine condition or anything, but you can feel, can't you? And it's all in the feel. Believe me, you feel that one around your block.
It looks fine. It looks fine. How much will it be with my car?
You mean you don't want the usual day and a half to think it over? I mean, you are in a hurry. Somebody chasing you?
Of course not. Please.
Well, heck, this is the first time I ever saw the customer high-pressure the salesman. All right, I have to figure roughly, well, your car plus 500.
500.
Ah, always got time to argue money, huh?
All right.
As the car dealer looks at her in amazement, she reaches into her bag, feels the money-filled envelope, pauses.
So I take it you can prove that car's yours. I mean, out of the state and all, you got your pink slip and all your...
I think I have the necessary papers. Is there a ladies' room?
In the building.
Mary starts for the building, glancing once in the direction of the patrolman. The patrolman, Mary's point of view, day. He still sits, his motor throbbing, his face quiet. Exterior, the used car lot, day. Mary goes into the office building. Cut to interior ladies' room, day. Mary enters, locks door, takes envelope out of her handbag, extracts one bundle of bills from the envelope, counts off 5, puts the bundle back into the envelope and the envelope back into the bag. Then she remembers, takes out the important papers envelope, goes through it, finds several papers having to do with her car, takes them all out, puts back the envelope, starts out of the ladies' room. Cut to exterior, the used car lot, day. The car dealer has moved the car of her choice out of the line. It stands in the clearing.
I think you'd better give it a trial spin. Don't want any bad word of mouth about California Charlie.
I'd really rather not, please. Can't we just settle this and...
Well, I'll be perfectly honest with you, ma'am. It's not that I don't trust you, but...
What? Is there anything so terribly wrong about making a decision and wanting to hurry? Do you think I've stolen my car?
Well, no, ma'am. I was just about to say I've sent my mechanic out to give your car a little test, that's all.
I'd like to be ready when he gets back.
Okay. If you'll come along...
He starts toward the office building. Mary follows, closely, anxiously. She glances, sees the patrolman, Mary's point of view, day. He is still at the far curb. Exterior used car lot, day. The car dealer goes into his office. Mary follows. Patrolman, day. A second later, he starts his automobile, checks traffic, comes across the street slowly, and drives onto the lot. He pauses a moment, then drives across the lot, passing the office, going to the other exit, stops there as Mary's car is driven back into the lot. The mechanic stops Mary's car, hops out, waves to the patrolman. The patrolman waves back, goes on a bit until he is behind Mary's car, stops again, looks over at the office. In a moment, Mary comes out, hurries across to her new car, gets in, starts the motor. The mechanic yells.
Hey, miss!
Mary pauses, turns, sees the patrolman, then the mechanic. Her face goes white. She doesn't know which man called her. Then the mechanic waves, starts forward with her suitcase.
Just put it right in here, please, beside me.
The mechanic smiles, throws the suitcase in. Mary zooms off. As she drives out of the lot, we see the mechanic, the car dealer, and the patrolman all looking after her. Dissolve to Mary in a new car on Route 99. Mary is driving tensely. She checks the rearview mirror, is more shocked than pleased when she sees Mary's rearview mirror. No sign of the patrolman. Mary in new car on Route 99. She turns her face, looks out at the highway. Route 99, Mary's point of view. It is heavy with traffic. Mary in new car on Route 99. Again, she checks the mirror, and although Mary's rearview mirror, there is still no sign of the patrolman. Mary in new car, Route 99. She cannot relax or feel safe, cannot convince herself that nothing will come of this man, of the man's watching and suspicions. Camera is close on Mary's face now, recording her anxiety, her fears. Her guilt shines bright in her eyes, and she is a person unaccustomed to containing this much guilt in this realistic situation. Suddenly, we hear the sound of the used car dealer's laugh, hear it as clearly as Mary hears it in her imagination. The imagined voice we hear is actually the voice of the car dealer.
Heck, officer, that was the first time I ever saw the customer high-pressure the salesman. Somebody chasing her?
I better have a look at those papers, Charlie.
She looked like a wrong one to you.
Acted like one.
Mary blinks, shakes her head, as if trying to shake away these voices from her imagination. She checks the rearview mirror. Mary's rearview mirror. Still no sight of the patrolman. Mary in new car. She tries to force herself to relax. Almost succeeds when she is sprung to tension again by exterior Highway 99, the sight of a police car. As she drives past, we hear the squeaky, unintelligible voice coming over the car radio. Mary zooms down on the gas, whizzes ahead. Dissolve to exterior Highway 99 long shot. Mary's car dashing along. Dissolve to Mary in new car. Mary looks weary, tired with strain and with hard driving. Her eyes are heavy with worry and deep thought. Out the windshield, we can see that it is much later in the day, almost dusk. Mary in new car. We hear the sound of an agitated buzz of an intercom system, a sound emanating from Mary's imagination. After the second buzz, we hear the voice of Caroline.
Yes, Mr. Lowery.
Caroline, Mary still isn't in?
No, Mr. Lowery. But then she's always a bit late on Monday mornings.
Buzz me the minute she comes in.
Again, Mary shakes her head, forces herself to stop hearing those invented scenes from her imagination. Exterior Highway 99. Now we cut to the view of the road from Mary's viewpoint. Darkness of evening is coming. In the dim twilight, we see the neon sign of roadside restaurants and gas stations beginning to blaze on. Interior, Mary's new car. Back on Mary's face, and after a moment, the imagined voices again.
Call her sister if no one's answering at the house.
I called her sister, Mr. Lowery, where she works, the music maker's music store, you know. And she doesn't know where Mary is any more than we do.
You better run out to the house. She may be unable to answer the phone.
Oh, her sister's going to do that. She's as worried as we are.
A flush of painful guilt and regret rises up in Mary's face. She closes her eyes for one tight, swift moment. Exterior Highway 99. We cut again to the highway. The first oncoming headlights slash at the windshield. Interior Mary's new car. Cutting back to Mary, we can see the sense by the tense muscles on her face that she is driving faster. The oncoming headlights blurt at her. Suddenly, we hear Lowery's voice, loud now and frightened, as if the anxiety in the man's voice was strong enough to break through Mary's effort to keep her mind silent and her imagination blank.
No, I haven't the faintest idea. As I said, I last saw your sister when she left this office on Friday. She said she didn't feel well and wanted to leave early, and I said she could. And that was the last I saw. Wait a minute. I did see her an hour or so later driving. I think you'd better come over here to my office. Quick. Caroline, get Mr. Cassidy for me.
Exterior, Highway 99. It is completely dark now, night. Interior, Mary's new car. We cut back to her face.
After all, Cassidy, I told you, all that cash. I'm not taking the responsibility. Oh, for heaven's sake. A girl's works for you for 10 years. You trust her. All right. Yes, you better come over.
Exterior, the road ahead from Mary's viewpoint. Interior, Mary's new car. Fast cut back to Mary's face. Oncoming headlights throw a blinding light across her features.
Well, I ain't about to kiss off $40,000. I'll get it back if any of it's missing. I'll replace it with her fine, soft flesh. I'll track her. Never you doubt it.
Hold on, Cassidy. I still can't believe it must be some kind of mystery. I can't.
You checked with the bank? No. They never laid eyes on her? No. You still trusting? Hot creepers. She sat there while I dumped it out. Hardly even looked at it. Planing and even flirting with me.
The look of revulsion makes Mary close her eyes. Through the windshield again, big drops of rain begin to appear. Close up on Mary. She's becoming more aware of the rain starting. Through the windshield, the rain increasing and backlit by the oncoming headlights. Close up Mary. Mary starts the windshield wipers. Through the windshield, the wipers are having a battle with the new torrential rain. Close up Mary. Peering through the blurred windshield. Close up the car wheels, slowing down in the flooding highway. Close up Mary. Peering through the windshield. The oncoming lights are fewer. Close up the car wheels, almost coming to a slow turn. Through the windshield, just blackness and rain. Close up Mary peering. Mary's viewpoint, an almost indiscernible light in the far distance, a neon sign blurred by the rain-sheeted windshield. Mary's car. She presses down, forces the car to move on through the flooded road. Exterior, the road. As we move closer, we see the neon sign more clearly and can faintly make out the large letters which read Motel. Mary stops the car, lowers the window slightly, looks out. We see the sign clearly now. Bates Motel. Mary opens the car door and dashes out into the rain, up onto the porch of the motel office. Exterior, Bates Motel, night. Mary pauses on the porch. The lights are on within the office. She tries the door, finds it open, goes into the office. The camera follows her into the office. There is no one present. Mary goes to the desk, rings a small push bell. There is no response. Mary rubs her forehead in weariness and frustration, goes back out onto the porch. She looks off in another direction, slightly behind the office, and sees, Mary's viewpoint, a large old house, night. A path from the motel office leads directly up to this house. There is a light on in one of the upstairs rooms. A woman passes the window, pauses, peers out. We can see her in clear silhouette. She quickly goes away from the window. Exterior, porch of Bates Motel, night. Mary, having seen the woman, expects now that she will get some attention. She stands for a few moments waiting. No one comes. Impatience and anger rise in Mary. She dashes out into the rain, to her car, gets in, opens the side window, begins to honk the horn. After a moment, a young man opens the front door of the house, pauses, starts down the path. After a few steps, he turns and runs back into the house. Mary leaves her car, starts a dash for the shelter of the porch. As she runs, we see that the young man has gone back only to get an umbrella. Seeing that Mary is on her way to the porch, he runs quickly, the umbrella unopened in his hand. He gets to the porch a moment after Mary has reached it. He stops short, looks at her, then at the umbrella hanging useless in his hand, then back at her. There is something sadly touching in his manner, in his look. Mary's impatience goes, and she smiles, and this makes him almost smile. He gestures her into the office, standing back to indicate that he will go after her. She goes into the office. Interior, office of Bates Motel, night. The young man follows Mary in, closes the door. He is Norman Bates, somewhere in his late 20s, thin and tall, soft-spoken and hesitant.
Dirty night.
You have a vacancy.
We have 12 vacancies. 12 cabins, 12 vacancies. They moved away the highway.
I thought I'd gotten off the main.
Yeah, I knew you must have. No one really stops here unless they do.
He is behind the counter now, pushing forward the registration book.
But it's no good dwelling on our losses. We go on lighting the lights and following the formalities. Would you sign here, please?
Mary has placed her handbag on the counter. She takes the registration book, picks up the pen, is suddenly struck with the realization that she'd better use allies. She writes the name Marie Samuels.
Your home address. Or just the town will do.
Los Angeles.
She realizes he didn't ask her to tell him, merely write it down. She smiles, writes Los Angeles beside the false name. Norman smiles, stops smiling out of embarrassment.
Cabin 1. It's closer in case you need anything. Right next to the office.
Close up Norman. He removes the key for cabin 1. We see there is a remaining key on the board. 2 shot, Mary and Norman.
I want sleep more than anything. Except maybe food.
Well, there's a big diner about 10 miles up, just outside Fairfield.
Am I that close to Fairfield?
15 miles. I'll get your base for you.
He goes to the door, opens it. The rain has slowed down considerably. He smiles at this fact, as if to communicate some pleasure he finds in it. Mary follows him to the door, goes out on the porch, waits and watches as Norman runs to her car, gets in, drives it to the parking space in front of cabin 1. Mary walks along the porch, waits before the door of cabin 1. Norman gets out of the car with the suitcase, runs to the door, opens it, pushes the door open, puts his hand in, and switches on a light. Mary goes into the cabin. Norman follows her. Interior, cabin 1, night. Norman places the suitcase on the bed, goes to the window, opens it.
Stuffy in here. Well, the mattress is soft, and there's hangers in the closet, and stationery with Bates Motel printed on it, just in case you want to make your friends back home feel envious. And the over there. Well, that.
Mary says.
The bathroom.
Yeah, that. Well, I'll be in the office if you want anything. Just tap on the wall.
Thank you, Mr. Bates.
Norman Bates.
He pauses at the door, gazes at her. She smiles.
You know, you have something that most girls never have.
I have?
Yeah, there's no name for it, but it's something that, I don't know, that puts a person at ease.
Thank you. Again.
Look, you're not really going out again and drive up to that diner, are you?
No.
Well, then will you do me a favor? You have supper with me. I was just about to myself. It's nothing more than sandwiches and a lot of milk, but I'd like it if you came up to the house and well, I mean, I don't set a fancy table, but the kitchen's awful homey.
I'd like to.
All right. Well, you get your dresses hanging out and change your wet shoes, and well, I'll come for you as soon as it's ready. With my trusty umbrella.
Mary closes the door, goes to the suitcase, opens it, starts to take out a dress. Her handbag is next to the suitcase. She glances down into it, pauses, drops the dress, reaches into the handbag, takes out the money-filled envelope, stares at it, almost with regret, contemplates hiding it, decides to, starts looking for a reasonable hiding place. She looks about at the closet, the drawers, etc., realizes all such places are obvious. Catching sight of the newspaper in her bag, she hits on a solution. She opens the newspaper, places the envelope within it, Locke folds the paper again, and then places it on the bedside table as if it were there for later reading. She considers this for a moment, accepts it, goes to her suitcase to start unpacking. Suddenly, the quiet is shattered by the shrill, ugly sound of a woman's voice, raised in anger.
No, I tell you, no!
Mary walks slowly to the window, realizing that the terrible voice is coming from the house behind the cabins. Camera follows her to the window. Once there, we see the light is still on the upstairs bedroom, and the voice is coming from that room. The rain has stopped and the moon is out.
I won't have you bringing strange young girls in for supper. By candlelight, I suppose, in the cheap erotic fashion of young men with cheap erotic minds.
Mother, please.
And then what? After supper, music, whispers?
Mother, she's just a stranger, hungry, and the weather's bad.
Mother, she's just a stranger. As if men don't desire strangers. As if... Oh, I refuse to speak of disgusting things, because they disgust me. You understand, boy? Go on, go. Tell her that she'll not be appeasing her ugly appetite with my food, or my son. Or do I have to tell her? Because you don't have the guts, huh, boy? Have you got the guts, boy? Shut up! Shut up!
There is the sound of a door closing in that room up there. Mary has stood by the window, listening with mounting distress and concern and sympathy. She turns her face away now, gazes sadly at the little empty room. In a moment, there is the sound of the house's front door slamming shut. Mary turns, looks out the window. From Mary's viewpoint, night. We see Norman coming down the path, carrying a napkin-covered tray. Interior, cabin 1, night. Mary looks at him for a moment, then turns quickly, goes to the door, opens it, and goes out onto the porch. Exterior, the motel porch, night. Mary pauses outside the door, is about to start forward when Norman comes around the building and walks along the porch, past the office, stopping only when he is close to her. He stares with painful embarrassment at the knowing look in her eye.
I've caused you some trouble.
Mother, my mother, what is the phrase? She isn't quite herself today. Yeah, I think that's it.
You shouldn't have bothered. I really don't have that much of an appetite.
Norman flinches, realizing she has heard his mother's reference to Mary's appetite.
I'm sorry. I wish you could apologize for other people.
Don't worry about it. But as long as you've made us supper, we may as well eat it, huh?
She begins to back into her room. Norman starts to follow, hesitates as he sees the total picture of an attractive young woman and a motel room. Bringing down the tray of food, in defiance of his mother's orders, is about the limit of his defiance for one day. He cannot go into Mary's room.
You know, it might be nicer, warmer in the office.
Without waiting for approval or disapproval, he turns, hurries to the office. Mary looks after him. Her face showed amused sympathy, then follows. Interior motel office night. Norman looks about, tray in hand, sees there is no reasonable place to spread out a supper. He turns, sees Mary in the doorway.
You know, eating in an office is too officious, even for me. I have this parlor behind this, if you'd like.
Mary nods. Norman walks on behind the counter and into the darkened parlor. Mary follows. Interior Norman's parlor, night. In the darkened room, lit only by the light from the office spilling in, we see Norman placing the tray on the table. Mary comes to the doorway, pauses. Norman straightens up, goes to the lamp, turns on the light. Mary is startled by the room. Even in the dimness of one lamp, the strange, extraordinary nature of the room rushes up at one. It is a room of birds, stuffed birds, all over the room, on every available surface, one even clinging to the old-fashioned fringe shade of the lamp. The birds are of many varieties, beautiful, grand, horrible, praying. Mary stares in awe and a certain fascinated horror. Close up, the various birds. Two-shot, Mary and Norman.
Please, sit down on the sofa.
As Norman goes about spreading out the bread and ham and pouring the milk, we follow Mary across the room. She studies the birds as she walks, briefly examines a bookcase stacked with books on the subject of taxidermy. Close up, the books on taxidermy. Medium close shot, Mary. She notices, too, the paintings on the wall, nudes primarily, many vaguely religious overtone. Finally, Mary reaches the sofa, sits down, looks at the spread.
You're very kind.
It's all for you. Go. I'm not hungry. Please, go ahead.
Mary begins to eat, her attitude a bit tense. She takes up a small slice of ham, bites off a tiny bite, nibbles at it in the manner of one disturbed and preoccupied. Norman gazes at her, at the tiny bite she has taken, smiles, and then laughs.
You eat like a bird.
You'd know, of course.
Not really. I hear that the expression that one eats like a bird is really a falsity. I mean, because birds eat a tremendous lot, you know. But I don't know really much about birds. My hobby's stuffing things, you know, taxidermy. But you know, I guess I'd rather stuff birds because, well, you know, I hate the way that beasts look when they're stuffed. You know, foxes and chimps, and some people even stuff dogs and cats. But well, I couldn't go for that. But I think only birds look well stuffed because they're rather passive to begin with. Well, most of them anyway.
He trails off, his exuberance flailing in the rushing return of his natural hesitancy and discomfort. Mary looks at him with some compression, smiles.
It's a strange hobby. Curious, I mean.
Uncommon too.
I imagine so.
Well, and it's not as expensive as you might think. You know, it's cheap, really. You know, needles, thread, sawdust. The chemicals are really the only thing that cost anything.
A man should have a hobby.
It's more than a hobby sometimes. A hobby's supposed to pass the time, not fill it.
Is your time so empty?
Oh no. I run the office. I tend the cabins and the grounds, and do little chores for my mother. Well, once she allows it, I might be capable of doing anyway.
You go out with friends?
Friends? Who needs friends? I mean, a boy's best friend is his mother. So, I bet you've never had an empty moment in your whole life, have you?
Only my share.
So where are you going? I don't mean to pry.
I'm looking for a private island.
What are you running away from?
Why do you ask that?
You know, people never really run away from anything. The rain didn't last very long, did it? You know what I think? I think we're all in our private traps, clamped in them, and none of us can ever get out. You know, we scratch and claw, but only at the air, only to each other, and for all of it, we never budge an inch.
Sometimes we deliberately step into those traps.
Well, I was born into mine, but I don't mind it anymore.
You should mind it.
Oh, I do. But I say I don't.
If anyone ever spoke to me the way I heard, the way she spoke to you, I don't think I could ever laugh again.
Well, you know, sometimes when she talks that way to me, I'd like to curse her and just leave her forever, or at least defy her. But I couldn't do that. She's ill.
She sounded strong.
No, I mean ill. You know, she had to raise me all by herself after my dad died. I was only 5 when it happened, but it must have been quite a strain on her. You know, she didn't have to go out and look for work or anything. My dad left us with a little something. Anyway, a few years ago, Mother met this man, and well, he talked her into building this motel. He could have really talked her into anything, but I don't know. Well, it's too much for her when he died, and the way he died, it's just, well, I guess it's nothing to talk about while you're eating. Anyway, it was just, was too much of a loss for my mother, so she really had nothing left.
Except you.
A son is a poor substitute for a lover.
Why don't you go away?
To a private island like you?
No, not like me.
Well, it's too late for me. And besides, who'd look after her? She'd be alone up there. Her fire would go out. It's damp and cold, like a grave. When you love someone, you don't do that to them, even if you hate them. I mean, I don't hate her. I hate what she's become. You know, I hate the illness.
Wouldn't it be better if you put her in someplace?
She hesitates. Norman turns slowly, looking at her with a striking coldness.
You mean an institution? A madhouse? People always call a madhouse someplace, don't they? Put her in someplace.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean it to sound uncaring.
What do you mean about caring? Have you ever seen one of those places? The inside? The laughing and the tears and the cruel eyes studying you? And my mother there? Why? Has she harmed you? She's harmless. She's as harmless as one of those stuffed birds.
I'm sorry. I only felt it seemed like she was harming you. I mean, I meant can't you?
Well, you meant well. People always mean well. They cluck their thick tongues and shake their heads and suggest oh so very delicately that...
The fury suddenly dies, abruptly and completely, and he sinks back into his chair. There is a brief silence. Mary watches the troubled man, is almost physically pained by his anguish.
Well, of course, I've suggested it myself, but I hate to think of such a thing. She needs me. And it isn't as if she were a maniac, a raving thing. She just goes a little mad sometimes. We all go a little mad sometimes. Haven't you?
Yes. And just one time can be enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Norman.
Norman.
You're not going to your room already, are you?
Very tired. And I'll have a long drive tomorrow, all the way back to Phoenix.
Phoenix?
I stepped into a private trap back there. And I want to go back and try to pull myself out before it's too late for me too.
Why don't you stay for a little while? You know, just for talking?
Oh, I'd like to, but
All right. Well, I'll see you in the morning then. I'll bring you some breakfast. So, what time will you be?
Very early, dawn.
All right. All right.
Crane.
That's it. Yeah.
Good night.
She goes out of the parlor. We see her from Norman's viewpoint as she crosses the small office, goes out into the night. Norman turns and looks at the table, and we see his face now. It is bright with that drunken-like look of determination and encouragement and resolve. He starts to clean up the table, pauses as he hears the closing of Mary's door in the cabin next door. He holds still, listens. He goes into the office and looks at the book. Close up, the name Samuels. Norman. He goes back into the parlor with a mystified expression. The sounds of Mary moving about her room come over, soft sounds, somehow intimate in the night quiet. Norman turns his ear from the direction of the sounds, seems to be fighting an impulse to listen, or more than listen. But slowly, he is forced to surrender to the impulse and, resisting himself, he goes to the wall, presses the side of his head against it. The sounds come louder, as if we too had our ear pressed against the wall. Now Norman looks at a picture hanging on the far end of the wall he is leaning against. Slowly, he starts toward it. He reaches it, touches it, reluctantly lifts the small frame off the wall. A tiny circle of light hits Norman's face, coming from the hole in the wall behind the picture. This end of the room is very dim, and thus we are able to see clearly the light striking Norman's face. We move close to Norman, extremely close, until his profile fills the screen. The tiny spot of light hits his eye. See the small hole through which the light comes. Norman peeps through. Norman's viewpoint. Through the hole, we look into Mary's cabin, see Mary undressing. She is in her bra and half slip. She stoops over a bit, places her hands behind her upper back, begins to unhook her bra. Norman. He watches as Mary removes her bra. We see his eye run up and down the unseen figure of Mary. Norman's viewpoint. Mary, just slipping into a robe, covering her complete nudity. Norman turns from the hole, faces us for a moment, continues turning until he can look out the small parlor window. We see, as he sees, the house in the background. Norman turns his face away, quickly, resentfully. In his face, we see anger and anguish, and then resolve. Quickly, precisely, he rehangs the picture over the hole in the wall, turns, starts out of the parlor. We see him go through the office and out onto the porch, not even bothering to close the door behind him. Cut to exterior, the office motel porch. Night. Norman is walking along the porch in the direction of the big house. Once on the path, he pauses, looks up at the light in the bedroom window, then pulls himself up, squares his shoulders, strides manfully up the path. Camera follows behind him. He opens the door of the house, enters. We see him pause at the foot of the stairway, look up at the bedroom door just at the head of the stair. He holds for a moment, then his resolve and courage evaporates. His shoulders slump, sadly, mournfully. He bypasses the stairs and slowly makes his way to the kitchen. At the far end of the hall, he enters the kitchen and drops wearily into a chair. After a moment, he stretches out a leg and gently pushes the kitchen door closed. Cut to interior Mary's motel room, night. Mary is seated at the small desk, engrossed in a figuring in a small notebook. We see from these figures a calculation which indicates her intention to make a restitution of the money she has of the $40,000. We see, too, her bank book. The paper reads thus: top figure, $40,000. Directly beneath it, $500. The amount used for the new car. Total after subtraction, $39,500. In another spot, we see a figure which matches the balance in her bank book, $624. Beneath it is the figure $500, then the amount after subtraction, $124. She studies the figures, sighs, not wearily, but with a certain satisfaction, with the pleasure that comes when one knows that at any cost one is going to continue doing the right thing. After a moment, she tears the page out of the notebook and, rising, begins to rip it into small pieces. She goes into the bedroom, drops the pieces into the toilet bowl, flushes the toilet. Then she drops her robe and steps into the tub and turns the shower on. Interior Mary in the shower. Over the bar on which hangs the shower curtain, we can see the bathroom door, not entirely closed. For a moment, we watch as Mary as she soaps herself. There is still a small worry in her eyes, but generally she looks somewhat relieved. Now we see the bathroom door being pushed slowly open. The noise of the shower drowns out any sound. The door is then slowly and carefully closed. And we see the shadow of a woman fall across the shower curtain. Mary's back is turned to the curtain. The white brightness of the bathroom is almost blinding. Suddenly, we see the hand reach up, grasp the shower curtain, rip it aside. Cut to Mary, ECU, as she turns in response to the feel and sound of the shower curtain being torn aside. A look of pure horror erupts on her face. A low, terrible groan begins to rise up out of her throat. A hand comes into shot. Interior, Mary in the shower. Over the bar on which hangs the shower curtain, we can see the bathroom door, not entirely closed. For a moment, we watch Mary as she washes soap off herself. There is still a small worry in her eyes, but generally she looks somewhat relieved. Now We already read
Yeah, it
this.
looks
This
like
is
a
a
repeat.
repeat.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. As she turns in response to the feel and sound of the shower curtain being torn aside, a look of pure horror erupts on her face. A low, terrible groan begins to rise up out of her throat. A hand comes into the shot. The hand holds an enormous bread knife. The flint of the blade shatters the screen to an almost total silver blankness. The slashing, an impression of a knife slashing, as if tearing the very screen, ripping the film. Over it, the brief gulps of screaming. And then silence. And then the dreadful thump as Mary's body falls in the tub. Reverse angle. The blank whiteness, the blur of the shower water, the hand pulling the shower curtain back. We catch one flicker of a glimpse of the murderer. A woman, her face contorted with madness, her head wild with hair, as if she were wearing a fright wig. And then we see only the curtain closed across the tub, and we hear the rush of the shower water. Above the shower bar, we see the bathroom door open again, and after a moment, we hear the sound of the front door slamming. Cut to the dead body. Lying half in, half out of the tub, the head tumbled over, touching the floor, the hair wet, one eye wide open as if popped, one arm lying limp and wet along the tile floor. Coming down the side of the tub, running thick and dark along the porcelain, we see many small threads of blood. Camera follows away from the body, travels slowly across the bathroom, past the toilet, out into the bedroom. As camera approaches the bed, we see the folded newspaper as Mary placed it on the bedside table. Close up, the newspaper beside the bed. The camera now moves away over to the window and looks up to the house. And as it gets out there, we hear, coming from within the house, the sound of Norman's fearful, shocked voice.
Mother! Oh, God, Mother! Blood! Blood! Mother!
We cannot entirely distinguish these exclamations. After a moment or two of silence, Norman emerges from the front door, dashes down the path toward the motel. Quick cut to exterior, the path, night. Norman is coming at camera, running head on. He dashes into an extreme close up, and we see the terror and fear ripe in his face. Camera pans as Norman races past, holds Norman as Norman runs to the porch, quickly along it, and directly to Mary's room.
Interior, Mary's cabin, night. Norman pauses a moment in the doorway, glances about the room, hears the shower going, sees the bathroom doors open. He goes to the bathroom, looks in, sees the body. Slowly, almost carefully, he raises his hands to his face, covers his eyes, turns his face away. Then he crosses to the window, looks out at the house. Shot is so angled that we see the bedside table with the newspaper on it. After a moment, Norman moves from the window, sinks into the edge of the bed. Fresh angle behind Norman. Norman sitting on the bed. The bathroom in background of shot, we can only see the hand of the dead girl lying along the tile floor. Norman presses his eyes, fights to find a way out of his dilemma. Slowly, a kind of settling comes upon him, the peace that comes with decision. Norman rises, goes to the window, looks out, and then, with resolution, closes the window and draws the curtain across it. Then he crosses to the front window, facing the porch, and draws those curtains closed. Then he switches off the bedroom light, leaving the room lit only by the spill from the bathroom. He opens the front door, goes out. Exterior, the hotel porch, night. Norman goes out of Mary's cabin, closes the door carefully behind him, goes along the porch to his office, goes in. We stay outside. Immediately, the vacancy sign goes off, and then the motel sign goes off. As camera goes closer to the office, the lights within go off, and we hear a closet door opening and then the sound of a pail being picked up. Norman comes out of office, closes door, looks cautiously about, goes along porch, carrying pail with mop in it. goes into Mary's cabin, closing the door after him. Interior Mary's cabin. With the paper in the foreground, Norman enters. We can see him in the dim spill of light. He pauses by the door, then gathers his strength and goes into the bathroom. We hear him set the pail on the tiled floor, and then we hear the shower being turned off, and there is total silence. Camera moves forward so that we can see into bathroom. Camera is angled that we see Norman only from the waist up. Quickly and deftly, he unhooks the shower curtain, emerges with it into the bedroom. Camera pans down and we see him spread the shower curtain on the bedroom floor, just outside the bathroom door. He spreads the curtain so that one end of it comes up against the bathroom threshold and slightly over and onto the tile floor. Again, he goes into the bathroom and camera tilts up so that we see only the upper half of Norman. He works carefully with his arms extended away from his body, slowly pulls the dead body out of the tub, drags it across the tile floor and onto the spread out shower curtain in the bedroom. Having arranged the body, he straightens up, examines his hands, sees bloodstains on them. He returns to the bathroom, goes to the hand basin, close shot. We see his hands being washed, see the bloodstains being diluted and washed away by the gush of the faucet water. We see Norman shake his hands free of the water, then turn to the job of cleaning the bathroom. He places the pail in the tub, runs water into it, dips the mop in, swabs the tile floor. With a towel, he wipes off the wall over the tub and the edges and sides of the tub and even the shower curtain rod. Then he takes a second towel and goes over the cleaned areas, carefully drying them. Finally, he rises and squeezes out the mop, empties the pail, cleans out the tub, and goes into the bathroom. Interior Mary's bedroom. Norman steps carefully around the unseen body, crosses to the desk, starts going through Mary's handbag in search of her car keys. He suddenly notices them lying on the desk where he'd thrown them after parking her car. He picks up the keys, crosses the room, goes out. Exterior, the porch. We see Norman pause at the door, check cautiously, then hurry across the porch and into Mary's car. He circle turns the car so that its trunk is backed up to the porch, directly opposite Mary's door, as close as it can go. Then he alights, goes to the trunk, opens it with the key, and leaving the trunk lid raised, goes back into the cabin. Interior Mary's room. From a raised angle, we see Norman bend down and begin to wrap the shower curtain around the body. We see the edges of the curtain as they raise and lay down again. Then he picks up the wrapped body, crosses to the door, uses his foot to pull the door open, and leaving the door open behind him, goes quickly across the porch and gently lays the body in the trunk. He closes the lid then, but does not lock it. He comes back into the cabin, closes the door completely, flicks on the light. Again, the newspaper is in the foreground. For a moment, he pauses, closes his eyes against the realization of what he is doing, then quickly pushes all thoughts away, continues with his work with the room lighted. He now proceeds to gather up all Mary's articles and toss them into the suitcase. He checks all drawers in the closet, gets down and checks under bed and bureau, goes into the bathroom, checks that room again, comes back into the bedroom, looks about carefully, spots Mary's handbag, throws even that into the suitcase, is finally satisfied that all traces of the girl are gone from the room. Then he closes Mary's suitcase, picks it up. With his free hand, he picks up the pail in which are the mop and the used towels. He crosses to the door, switches off the light with his shoulder, pulls open the door, starts out. Exterior, the porch. As Norman stands in the doorway, he is suddenly and blindingly lit by the bright headlights of a passing car. The flash of the lights and the sound of the speeding car are over in a flicker of a moment, but it takes a few seconds for Norman to regain his former tense composure. Then he goes to the car trunk, raises it with his foot, throws the suitcase and the pail into it, slams it shut. He pauses a moment, then realizes he has left the bathroom light on in Mary's cabin. He returns to the cabin. As he enters, his eye is caught by the newspaper on the bedside table. He goes to it, takes the newspaper, and looks once again into the bathroom. His glance goes right over to the toilet bowl. He turns out the lights, crosses the darkened cabin, goes out onto the porch. He reopens the trunk, tosses in the newspaper, and closes it. He goes around and jumps into the car and starts away. We hold on the trunk, follow it for a while, then dissolve to exterior the swamp night. The car pulls away from a close angle on the trunk, and as camera holds, we see that we are now in a swamp area. It is quiet except for the irritating noises of the night insects. Norman stops the car at the very edge of the swamp, turns off the lights, gets out, leaving door open. He looks at the swamp, seems doubtful of its ability to swallow up the car, realizes he has no choice. He leans into the car, releases the emergency brake, starts to push. The front of the car begins to roll into the swamp. Suddenly, there is a low, throbbing sound of a motor. Norman freezes, listens. The sound grows louder, and Norman realizes it is an airplane flying overhead. The car is rolling quickly now. Norman jumps away, slams the door shut, stands tense. The sound of the plane overhead grows louder. Norman looks up. Norman's viewpoint, the black sky. We see no plane. The sound of the motor is beginning to diminish. Cut back to Norman. We see the relief in his face. He looks at the car. More than 2/3 of it have already sunk into the swamp. The trunk alone seems to hold poised above the sand and slime, as if refusing to go the rest of the way. Norman begins to panic. He steps dangerously close, pushes with his foot, and slowly the car sinks until finally it is gone, and we hear only the gentle plop of the swamp's final gulp and see only the small afterbubble, like a visual burp. Norman waits a moment, then begins stamping out the tire marks, so obviously in the wet ground around the swamp. He stamps and drags his feet over the markings as we dissolve to close up Norman, standing on the porch of the motel, leaning against a post. He is staring out into the night, a look of guarded, casual innocence in his face, as if he were taking one last moment of peaceful night air before retiring. Then he glances down, and camera follows his gaze. A hose is lying on the ground outside Mary's cabin, its stream of water obliterating the tire marks. After a moment, Norman's hand comes into shot, picks up hose, places it in a new position. As camera pulls back, we see that the water from the hose has erased and rearranged the road markings so that it would be impossible to tell that a car had been parked here. After a short wait, Norman goes to the hose faucet, turns it off, unscrews the hose. As he rolls the hose, he walks away from the spot, past the office, heading for the path that leads to the house. He goes up the path, pauses at the steps of the house, tosses the curled hose onto the lawn, goes up the steps and into the house. Camera follows him in, pauses as he pauses at the front of the stairs. Norman goes up the stairs. On the landing, he stops. The door to his mother's room is closed. Lying in a heap outside the door are a blood-stained dress and a pair of elderly woman's shoes. From an extremely high angle, we look down on Norman as he bends to pick up the stained dress and shoes. He rolls the shoes into the dress, tucks the small, neat bundle under his arm, and starts down the stairs, heading for the basement. Exterior, a long shot of the old house, night. It stands silhouetted against the sky. There's a long wait. Then, slowly, a curl of smoke comes out of the chimney. Fade out, fade in. Interior, back room of Sam's hardware store in Fairvale. Day. Sam is seated at his desk, writing a letter. Sequence begins with camera in close over Sam's shoulder, and we can read as much as has written of the letter. The letter reads Sam Loomis Hardware, and the letter reads, "Dearest, right as always, Mary. I'm sitting in this tiny back room, which isn't big enough for both of us. And suddenly it looks big enough for both of us. So what if we're poor and cramped and miserable? At least we'll be happy. If you haven't come to your senses and still want to," camera begins pulling away as Sam turns the sheet of paper over, continues backing out a way out of the small back room and heads backwards down the corridor. We see a young clerk, Bob Summerfield, Sam's assistant, standing behind the counter, a look of handsome patience on his face. He is waiting on a meticulous elderly woman customer who is holding and examining a large can of insecticide. As camera passes,
They tell you what its ingredients are and how it's guaranteed to exterminate any insect in the world, but they do not tell you whether or not it's painless. And I say, insect or man, death should always be painless.
camera, by this, has reached the front door of the hardware store, and we now see a girl standing just inside the door. She's an attractive girl with a rather definite manner, a look of purposefulness. She carries a handbag and a small overnight case. She is Mary's sister, Lila Crane. Bob Summerfield has noticed Lila, smiles brightly at her, gives her an "I'll be with you in a moment" nod. Lila starts to walk towards the counter, never taking her eyes off Bob. As she approaches, she asks quietly,
Sam?
Summerfield. Andy. Andy, we can't hear you, Mr.
Yeah.
Summerfield.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
You want to see Sam?
Sam Loomis.
Sam, a lady wants to see you.
Lila looks to the back room. The woman customer goes on worriedly, examining the fine print of the insecticide can. Sam comes to the door of his room, pauses, looks at Lila a moment, starts toward her, his expression indicating that he does not know her. Lila studies him with a quiet, worried expression.
Yes?
May I talk to you?
Sure.
Lila glances at the customer, and the clerk turns, starts toward the front of the store. Sam holds a moment, then follows. As he reaches her, she turns, her eyes studying him intently as she says,
I'm Mary's sister.
Lila?
Is Mary here?
Sam is mystified and is also aware of the worried, hostile expression on Lila's face. He studies her for a quiet moment. Behind them is a display of various sized carving knives.
Is something wrong?
I want to know if my sister is here.
Here?
With you.
Where?
I don't know where. In your store, somewhere in your town, anywhere.
What's the matter?
Don't you know?
As Sam is about to speak, the woman customer comes sailing past, speaking as she goes and wearing a satisfied smile.
All I can do is hope if it isn't painless, it's quick.
She speaks quick with a kind of delicious bite, nods happily, goes on out of the store. Sam is now staring apprehensively at Lila.
What should I know?
To begin with, where Mary is. Do you?
No. I take it you don't either. How long?
Last Friday, she left work and home. I was in Tucson over the weekend. I haven't heard from her, not even a phone call.
And you thought she'd come here to me? If she had, what reason would she have for not calling you?
A good reason, I suppose.
Well, what do you think we eloped or something, or we're living in sin and...
Mr. Loomis, you're so busy being defensive that you haven't even reacted to the most serious fact of all. Mary is missing.
I was getting to that.
What do you know about it?
What do you know about it? Oh, nothing. You're putting me on the defensive.
Look, if you two are in this thing together, I don't care. It's none of my business. But I want to see Mary. I want her to tell me she's all right and it's none of my business. And then I'll go home, back to Phoenix. And
She stops, the anxiety and fear building up in her eyes beginning to fill with worried tears. Sam studies her for a moment, then turns and calls,
Bob, run out and get yourself some lunch.
It's okay, Sam. I brought it with me.
Run out and eat it.
Bob gets the message, goes out through the back way. Sam goes closer to Lila, speaks with soft seriousness.
What thing?
huh?
What thing could we be in together?
Oh, I hate tears.
Is Mary in trouble?
Yes.
Well, why didn't she come to me? Call me.
Oh, not that kind. Oh, you men and your egos.
Never mind my ego. Let's talk about Mary.
Their attention is distracted by a man who has strolled quietly into the room. He ignores them, walks past them, goes behind the counter, takes down a sign reading, closed for lunch, walks back to the door, closes door, hangs the sign across the door window, locks the door, turns to Sam and Lila, folds his arms, smiles a particularly unfriendly smile.
Let's all talk about Mary.
Who are you, friend?
Milt Arbogast, private investigator. Where is she, Miss Crane?
I don't know.
Wouldn't have been able to tail you if you did.
What's your interest?
Money.
There is a moment's silence, and then, unable to tolerate the sudden frightening happenings, Sam explodes.
Somebody better tell me what's going on and tell me fast. I can take so much and then...
Your girlfriend stole $40,000.
Sam looks at Arbogast in utter shock, and in that state asks one of those seemingly ridiculous questions.
Why?
Must have needed it.
What are you talking about? What is this?
She was supposed to bank it on Friday for her boss. She didn't. And no one has seen her since.
Someone has seen her. Someone always sees a girl with $40,000. She is your girlfriend, isn't she?
Sam, they don't want to prosecute. They just want the money back. It was all in cash.
Casheroony.
Sam, if she's here, please.
She isn't.
A real look of anguish comes into Lila's face, and Arbogast studies it, then speaks.
You came up here on a hunch, Miss Crane. Nothing more? No phone call from him or from your sister herself?
Not even a hunch, just hope.
With a little checking, I could get to believe you.
I don't care if you do or... Oh, I want to see Mary before she gets in any deeper.
Did you check in Phoenix? Hospitals? Maybe she had an accident. A holdup.
She was seen leaving her town in her car. Seen her by many victims, I might add.
I don't believe it. Do you?
Yes, I just did. I mean, the moment they told me.
You might have doubted for, say, 5 minutes or so. Sister?
Lila turns from Sam, a flush of guilt and regret in her face. Arbogast looks at her, quiet, sympathetically.
We're always quickest to doubt people who have a record for being honest. I think she's here, Miss Crane. Where there's a boyfriend, she won't be back there among the nuts and bolts. But She'll be in this town somewhere. I'll find her.
He nods, takes down the closed for lunch sign, sails it to the counter, opens door, goes out into the street after a quiet moment.
I just listened, and I believed everything they told me. She stole the money. We don't want to get her in trouble. Don't bring the police in.
It was her boss's idea not to report it to the police.
Well, no, the man whose money he talked so loud and fast, and I should have called the police.
He must have had a darn good reason for wanting them to keep out of it. All that cash?
I ought to call the police right now.
No.
Why not? I mean, Sam, is she hiding here? Are you two planning to go away with the money?
How could I go away? I am in debt up to my... If she did steal that money, it's hard to believe she did because it's hard to see why she would, unless she had some wild idea that it would help me.
She hasn't even called you?
I didn't see her, and I didn't hear from her. Believe that.
I need to. I need to believe something. And this is the first time I've ever come up against anything I couldn't understand.
You've led a charmed life.
No, I just think anything can be explained. But Mary doing a thing like this, I don't know how to handle it.
Maybe we can handle it together.
I came flying up here expecting to get some explanation. For all I know, she may be trying to get in touch with me at home. Oh, I better go home.
I think she'll contact me if she contacts anyone. Why don't you stay here? When she shows up or calls, be here.
You want me to stay here?
She'll need both of us.
Where? Where can I stay?
First-rate hotel, 50 yards up the street. Come on. After we check you in, we'll go to the drugstore and get you a sandwich. Then we'll come back here and wait.
He hangs the sign on the door, ushers Lila out, closes door behind him. Cut to exterior street day. They emerge from the store and walk along to the hotel. As they enter, Arbogast is in the act of taking over a white Ford sedan from a rental car man. They glance at him, and he returns a cynical look. Dissolved to exterior hotel day. Outside another hotel, we see Arbogast alight from the white car and go into new hotel. Dissolved to exterior countryside day. The white car speeding along the highway. Dissolved to exterior new motel day. Arbogast going into the office. We see the sign above him. Dissolved to exterior Bates Motel day. A high shot showing the freeway and Bates house and motel on the side old highway. A pause, and then across the bottom of the picture, a white car speeds by on the freeway. Dissolved to exterior hotel dusk. Another hotel. Arbogast goes in. Dissolved to exterior Bates Motel day. The white car speeding along the freeway again, going in the opposite direction to the last time. Norman, a tiny figure, is seen going up the steps to his mother's house. Dissolved to exterior boarding house day. Arbogast's search is getting down in the scale. This is an entrance to a cheesy boarding house, rooms to rent, etc. He looks at his list and then goes in. Dissolved to exterior Bates Motel day. The white car goes by on the freeway again. Dissolved to exterior rooming house day. Arbogast goes in. Dissolved to exterior Bates Motel twilight. Heavy traffic on the freeway. A beat or two. Again, the white car. It slows up opposite the distant motel. It makes a turn and goes back out of scene. A pause, and it reappears on the old road and slowly makes its way toward the Bates Motel. Exterior, the Bates house and motel, Twilight. We now see Norman. He has brought out an old rocking chair and has placed it on the office porch and is sitting hunched in it. And he is darning one of his own socks. Camera holds beyond the porch, and Norman, we see the old house and can barely make out in the twilight dimness the figure of his mother seated at the window. Here, too, there is that quality of quiet peace surrounded by a vague foreboding. Now Norman looks up at the sound of the approaching car and continues looking as the car comes to a stop and Arbogast gets out. Arbogast gives the place a quick once-over, gazes at Norman, starts forward. In his steps and manner, there is that bored, routine, logged quality of a man who has seen too many motels and asked questions of too many hotel managers over too short a period of time. Norman rises as Arbogast comes forward.
I always forget to put the sign on. But we do have a vacancy. 12, in fact. 12 cabins, 12 vacancies.
In the past 2 days, I've been to so many motels. My eyes are bleary with neon. This is the first one that looked like it was hiding from the world at large.
Well, I don't normally forget about the sign. It just doesn't seem any use anymore. This used to be the main highway. So, want to register?
Sit down. I don't want to trouble you, just want to ask.
No trouble. Today's linen day. I change all the beds once a week, whether they're used or not. You know, dampness. I hate the smell of dampness. It has this dank smell.
Norman is holding the door open, so Arbogast walks in. Norman follows. Interior motel office, Twilight. Norman switches on the overhead light, starts for the linen closet, suddenly pauses, turns, studies Arbogast, who has remained standing by the door.
So, you out to buy a motel?
No.
Oh, I just thought you said you'd seen so many in the last 2 days. So, what was it you wanted to ask about?
I'm looking for a missing person. My name's Arbogast, private investigator. Trying to trace a young girl who's been missing almost a week. From Phoenix. It's a private matter. Family wants to forgive her. She isn't in trouble.
Well, I didn't think the police went searching for people who weren't in trouble.
I'm not the police.
Oh.
He waits a moment, then opens closet, starts counting out sheets and pillowcases, keeps his back to Arbogast. Arbogast takes a photograph out of his pocket, talks as he crosses to Norman.
We have reason to believe she came this way. Might have stopped in the area. Did she stop here?
No one's stopped here in weeks.
Mind looking at the picture before committing yourself?
Committing myself to what? You sure talk like a policeman.
Look at the picture, please.
Norman glances briefly, turns away, lifts sheets and pillowcases off the shelf, holds them close, almost protectively.
No. At least I don't recall.
She might have used an alias. Mary Crane's the real name, but she might have registered.
Look, I don't even bother with guests registering anymore. I mean, little by little, you drop the formalities, right? I shouldn't even bother to change the linen. You know, I guess old habits die hard. which reminds me.
He goes to the wall, flips a light switch.
It's the vacancy sign. You know, just in case. We had a couple in the other night said if the sign hadn't been on, then they would have thought the whole place was deserted mining town or something.
Now there's a couple even remarking about your sign, and you see how it is easily you forgot them?
What?
You thought no one has stopped here in weeks. Now, try to remember if this girl, maybe she even signed the register, because habits die hard. Let's check it, huh?
Norman says nothing. Arbogast goes to the desk, pulls the registry book around, flips back a page or two. Norman simply stares at the man. Arbogast hums faintly, pleasantly, as he examines the pages. Then,
Yes, sir. Marie Samuels. Interesting alias.
he takes a slip of paper out of his pocket, lays it beside the signature in the registry book, all the while nodding and smiling nicely, as if this discovery will make Norman as happy as it is making him.
Don't know where she got Marie, but Samuels figures. Her boyfriend's name is Sam. Was she in disguise? Or do you want to check the picture again?
Look, I didn't lie to you. I just have trouble keeping track of time.
Arbogast has reached him, the picture extended. Norman looks dutifully at it.
Yeah. It was raining and her hair didn't look like that. Damped out, I guess.
Tell me about her.
Well, she arrived kind of late, wet and hungry, and she was very tired, and she went right to bed and left early.
How early?
Very early, like dawn, really.
Of which morning?
The following morning, Sunday. Yes.
No one met her?
No.
Or arrived with her?
No.
She didn't call anyone, even locally?
No.
You didn't spend the whole night with her, did you?
No. Of all the...
How do you know she didn't make a call?
Well, she said she was tired. She said she had a long drive ahead of her, and in the morning. So, yes. Now I'm remembering it very clearly because I'm picturing when you picture something of the moment in your mind and you remember every detail. She was sitting back there. No. She was standing up and with some sandwich still in her hand, and she said she had a long way.
A long way back where?
What do you mean?
You said she was sitting back there, or standing rather.
Oh, my private parlor back there. She had an awful hunger, so I went and I made her some supper, and then she went to bed, and then I left in the morning. I didn't see her leave. So.
How did she pay you?
What?
Cash or check for the cabin?
Oh, cash.
And when she left, she never came back?
Why should she? I'm sorry, I've got work to do, Mr. If you don't mind.
I do mind. If it don't gel, it ain't aspic. This ain't gelling.
Look, I don't know what you expect me to know about. People come, people go. They just...
She isn't still here, is she?
Not at all.
Suppose I wanted to search the cabins. All 12. Would I need a warrant?
Look, if you won't believe me, go ahead. You can... Come on, you can help me make the beds if you like. Come on.
He starts out. Arbogast pauses momentarily, confused by the young man's openness. Cut to exterior the motel porch night. Norman walks down the porch, hesitates before cabin 1, walks on a bit toward cabin 2, stops, turns to see if Arbogast is following. Arbogast has come out onto the porch, but is not following. He has walked to the opposite end of the porch and is standing at its edge, looking up at the old house. The upstairs window is in darkness. The neon of the vacancy and motel signs splash strange light over the scene.
Change your mind?
Arbogast does not reply. Norman becomes apprehensive, starts to Arbogast, forcing himself to remain calm and cheerful.
I guess I just have one of those faces you can't help believing.
Anyone at home?
No, I live there, alone.
Someone is sitting in that window.
Oh, that must be my mother.
Arbogast turns, gazes seriously at him.
She's ill, confined to her room. It's practically living alone.
If this girl Mary Crane were here, You'd have no reason to hide her, would you?
No, of course not.
If she paid you well?
Now look.
Or if she had you, say, gallantly protecting her, you wouldn't be fooled. You'd know she was just using you, wouldn't you?
Look, I'm not a fool. And I'm not capable of being fooled, not even by a woman.
I didn't mean that as a slur on your manhood. I'm sorry.
That's all right, but look, maybe she could have fooled me, but she didn't fool my mother.
Your mother met her? Can I talk to your mother?
No, I told you, she's confined.
Just for a moment, she might have picked up a hint you'd miss. Sick old women are sharp. Come on, I won't disturb.
No! Just no. Okay, I have one of those breaking points like any other man, believe it or not, and I'm quite near it, okay? There's just so much pushing that I can take, and I think...
All right. Might save me a lot of legwork if I could just talk to your mother, but I'd need a warrant for that, won't I?
Norman does not respond. Arbogast gets in his car, starts the motor. Norman looks up, studies the man's face, his own face showing apprehension. Arbogast backs the car around very slowly, his gaze divided between the old house and the lighted window of cabin 2. As he turns the car out, his headlights light up the porch. Norman stands, watching him drive away. Exterior phone booth night. The car pulls up and Arbogast gets out of the car, leaving motor running. As he starts to walk across the highway, camera pulls away and we cut to exterior highway with telephone booth night. Arbogast gets to the phone booth, enters. Camera starts forward and we see Arbogast remove a small notebook from his pocket. Check on a number, drop a dime in the slot and dial this number. As we reach phone booth, cut to
Miss Crane, please. She leave a number? Thanks. Lila there, Miss Lomas? Arbogast. Lila? Look, this isn't much, but it might make you feel a little better. Mary was up here. Spent last Saturday night out at Bates Motel, out here on the old highway. Young fellow runs it, said Mary spent the night, left. Period. I did question him, believe me. I think I got all there was to get. Just have to try to pick up the scent from here. Well, maybe that's because I don't feel entirely satisfied. He's got a sick old mother, confined type, and I think she saw Mary and talked to her. Shame. 2 confined old women love to talk to strangers. I was, but I think I'll go back to the motel first. No, you stay put, Lila, with Lomas. I should be back in an hour. All right. And Lila, you'll be happy to know what I think. I think our friend Sam Lomas didn't even know Mary was here. See you in an hour or less.
He hangs up, gets out of the phone booth, dissolved to exterior Bates Motel night. A distant view of the house and motel. There is a light on in the house. There is also a light on in Norman's office. We see Norman emerge from his office and move along the porch toward the distant cabins. He carries sheets on his arm. He goes into the last cabin and switches the light on. Into the foreground, the hood of the white Ford enters the scene and stops. Arbogast gets out. He goes over to the motel office. Exterior motel office night. Arbogast goes in. Interior office night. Arbogast looks around the empty office and calls.
Bates.
He goes over to the door to the parlor and enters. He looks around the bird-ridden room. He stops short as he sees close up the old safe in the corner. Close up, Arbogast goes over to it. He finds it unlocked. With a quick, cautious look around, he opens it. Close up the empty safe. Close up, Arbogast straightens up and goes out. Exterior motel office night. Arbogast comes out and looks off. He sees the last lit cabin, the door ajar. Close up, Arbogast night. would go along, but he stops with a new thought. He turns around and looks off. Long shot, the old house from his viewpoint, night. Close up, Arbogast comes to a decision. He goes off. Long shot, Arbogast dashes up the stone steps to the house. Medium shot. Camera holds as Arbogast goes up onto the porch. The house is dark within, except as we can now see, for a faint spill of light in the foyer, light which comes from the upstairs hall. Arbogast goes to the living room window, looks in, sees only darkness. Then he goes to the door, listens for a long moment, hears nothing. Very slowly, almost painfully, he turns the knob of the door and pushes gently with his arm and shoulder. The door begins to open. He allows it to open just enough for him to slip through and into the foyer. Cut to interior foyer of Bates' house, night. Arbogast gradually eases the door closed, stands against it, waiting. He looks up in the direction of the light, sees no one. The door at the head of the stairs is closed. Arbogast listens, holds his breath, hears what could be human sounds coming from upstairs, but realizes these could also be the sounds of an old house after sunset. After a careful wait, he crosses to the stairs, starts up slowly, guardedly, placing a foot squarely on each step to test it for squeaks or groans before placing his full weight on it. Camera follows, remaining on floor level but traveling along the stairway as Arbogast makes his way up. Cut to interior stairway and upstairs landing, extremely high angle. We see Arbogast coming up the stairs, and now we see the door of the mother's room opening carefully and slowly. As Arbogast reaches the landing, the door opens and the mother steps out. Her hand raises high, the blade of an enormous knife flashing. Close up, a big head of an astonished Arbogast. The knife slashes across his cheek and neck. Blood spurts. The sudden attack throws him off balance. He stumbles back and staggers down the whole of the staircase. He frantically gropes for the balustrade as he goes backwards down the stairs. The camera follows him all the way. A wicked knife keeps thrusting itself into the foreground. As he collapses at the bottom, the black head and shoulders of Mrs. Bates plunges into the foreground as the camera moves in to contain the rising and descending murder weapon. Fade out, fade in. Interior back room of hardware store, night. Lila is sitting close by the phone and looks as if she hasn't moved from it in the last hour. Sam is pacing, occasionally stopping at the window, glancing out, pacing again. The ashtray close to Lila is filled. There is a thick atmosphere of smoke, tension, and weariness in the small, otherwise cozy room.
Sometimes Saturday night has a lonely sound. Ever noticed, Lila? Muted, Lila. Vicki.
We can't hear you, Vicki. Mute. You're muted.
Sam, he said an hour or less.
It's been 3.
Are we just going to go on sitting here?
He'll be back. Let's sit still and hang on, okay?
You have an awfully nice habit, Sam.
Hundreds. Which one's your pet?
Whenever I start contemplating the panic button, your back straightens up and your eyes get that God looks out for everybody look, and I feel better.
I feel better when you feel better.
Where's the old highway?
You want to run out there? Bust in on Arbogast and a sick old lady? Shake her up and maybe spoil everything Arbogast's been building for the last 3 hours?
Yes.
That wouldn't be a wise thing to do.
Patience doesn't run in our family, Sam. I'm going out there.
Arbogast said.
An hour or less.
Sam stares at her, frowns in concern over her very real anxiety, goes to the phone, dials operator.
Got the number of the Bates Motel out on the old highway? Bates, I think.
Sam, why call when we can go?
And maybe pass Arbogast on the road? Thanks.
He presses down the receiver, releases it, dials Bates Motel. The faint other end ringing tones can be heard repeatedly, annoyingly. He waits.
Probably on his way back right now.
Sam, I'm going.
You'll never find it.
He starts for the door. Lila follows after him into the store, interior store. He pauses halfway down, turns, puts his hands on her arms.
Stay here.
Why can't I go out there with you?
I don't know. One of us has to be here in case Arbogast is on the way.
Just wait here?
Contemplate your panic button.
He hurries down to the street door and out. Camera holds on Lila as she stares after Sam. As she stands alone in the darkened store, all the hardware seems to take on sinister shapes. Close up, among some bathroom fittings, a nozzle from a shower falls onto the floor. Medium shot. Lila turns and picks it from the floor and puts it back in its place. She turns and again looks to the deserted street with a touch of anxiety. She gives a slight unconscious shiver. Dissolved to exterior the swamp night. Tell and lonely still against the moonlight. The figure of Norman silhouetted. He doesn't move, merely stands there at the edge of the swamp, staring down at the now calm and quiet face of it. Cut to exterior the hotel and house night. All lights are out except the light in Norman's mother's room, and her figure can be seen sitting in the window, relaxed in a high back chair, her face turned into the room. After a second, we hear the sound of a motor, and then Sam's small pickup truck swings into the driveway. Sam stops the motor, automatically switches off headlights, pauses as he observes the silence and darkness of the area. Then he hops out of the cab, goes quickly to the office, knocks on the door. As he waits for a response, he looks down the long porch, studies the darkened cabins, knocks again, louder, looks in the other direction and sees the house and the figure at the one lit window. He stares a moment, then calls loudly.
Arbogast!
Cut to exterior the swamp, the silhouette of Norman. He is still, overshot, very dimly. Comes to the sound of Sam's voice, calling again for Arbogast.
Arbogast!
Norman turns slowly until in silhouette we see his profile, his chin lowered furtively as he looks over his shoulder in the direction of the house. There is silence for a moment, and then again the sound of Sam pounding at the door. Dissolved to interior hardware store night. The store is in darkness, only the glow from the back room spilling in. Long shot, with the camera placed with its back to the street door, we can see the distant, tiny figure of Lila seated and waiting in the back room beyond. There is a sound of a car pulling up. The tiny figure jumps up and runs all the way from the back room down the aisle of hardware and comes into a big head. We see Lila's desperate, anxious look. Medium shot. From her viewpoint, we see Sam alighting from his truck and coming toward the door of the store. He enters. He and Lila exchange quiet glances.
He didn't come back here? Muted, Vicki.
Sam.
No Arbogast, no Bates, and only the old lady at home? Sick old lady, unable to answer the door or unwilling.
Where could he have gone?
Maybe he got some definite lead. Maybe he went right on.
Without calling me?
In a hurry.
Sam, he called me when he had nothing definite, nothing but a dissatisfied feeling. don't you think he'd have called if he had anything definite?
Yes, I think he would have.
Lila goes quiet. Sam starts toward the back room, pauses at the doorway, turns. Lila has remained by the door, looking out at the street. She feels his pause, turns, and for a moment, they stare at each other across the darkened room.
Let's go see Al Chambers.
Who's he?
He's the deputy sheriff around here.
As he starts forward, dissolved to exterior street the sheriff lives on, night. A dark, quiet, tree-ceilinged street. The small, neat houses dim in the moonlight. Sam's pickup truck comes down the street, pulls up before the house of Sheriff Chambers. Camera moves in on Sam and Lila as they remain for a moment in the truck's cab, staring quietly at the sleeping house.
Our deputy sleeps.
Well?
Nothing, just all the lights out. Must be asleep.
Does that mean we can't knock? Or...
No, I'm just procrastinating. People hate when the doorbell rings in the middle of the night. Come on.
He gets out of cab, goes around to help Lila. She's already out. Camera follows them up the small path to the front door. Sam presses the bell button. Both he and Lila are almost knocked over by the shocking, clanging, ear-splitting blast of the bell within the house, a ring which sounds more like a fire alarm than a doorbell. He tries to smile, fails. Lila doesn't even try. The downstairs hall light goes on, and a moment later, the door is unhesitantly opened by Mrs. Chambers, a small, lively stick of a woman wrapped in a thick flannel robe and a corona of hospitality.
Oh?
Sorry, Miss Chambers. I hate to be bothering you.
Oh, you didn't. It's Tinkerbell. Al wants to be sure he'll hear it if anyone rings it in the middle of the night. Well, come on in at least.
As she opens the door wide, cut to interior downstairs hall of sheriff's house, night. Fat roses splatter the wallpaper. The stairs are carpeted. The lighting is bright. There is a perfectly fitting wall phone by the parlor arch. Mrs. Chambers goes to the stairway, yells up.
Oh, Albert! Oh, Al Chambers!
Sam is about to close the door behind him. Mrs. Chambers motions for him not to, scurries across the hall, leans outside, presses the doorbell. The ring within the house is even more shattering. She closes the door, starts to the stairway, pauses as the sounds of movement above come overshot.
Oh, customers!
Sheriff Chambers comes down the stairs in a bathrobe which matches his wife's. He is tall, narrow man with a face originally destined for Mount Rushmore. He nods at Sam, looks at him with wide awake eyes and a nonsense concern.
We have a problem.
Let's go out back and have some cocoa while the men are talking.
Oh, no, thank you. It's my problem, too.
I don't know where to start, except at the beginning.
Yes.
This is Lila Crane from Phoenix. She's been here for a few days looking for her sister. There's a private detective helping, and, well, we got a call tonight from this detective saying he's traced Mary.
Mary is Lila's sister?
Yes, he traced her to that motel out on the old highway.
Bates Motel. He has a mind like a mechanical brain, and the more information you feed it... Oh, go on, Sam.
He's traced her there and called us to say he was going to question Mrs. Bates.
Norman took a wife?
No, an old woman, his mother. That was early this evening, and we haven't seen or heard from him since. I went out there to the motel, just got back. No one was in the office, and...
Will you help us? I think something's wrong out there.
Now, your sister is missing how long?
She left Phoenix a week ago, yesterday, and no trace until I
How do you and this detective come to trace her to Fayetteville?
They thought she'd be coming to me.
And so she left Phoenix under her own steam.
Yes.
She ain't missing so much as she's run away.
Yes.
From what?
She stole some money.
A lot?
$40,000.
And the police haven't been able to.
Everyone concerned thought if they could get her to give back the money, they could avoid involving her with the police.
Explains the private detective. He traced her to the Bates place. What exactly did he say when he called you?
Mary had been there one night and had left.
With the $40,000?
He didn't mention the money. What he said on the phone isn't important, is it? I mean, he was supposed to come back after he spoke to the mother, and he didn't. And that's what I want you to do something about.
Like what?
Go out there, find somebody, ask some questions. I'm sorry if I seem over anxious to you, but I just keep thinking something's wrong, and I have to know what.
I think something's wrong too, miss, but not the same thing. I think your private detective is what's wrong. I think he got himself a hot lead as to where your sister was going, probably from Norman Bates, and called you to keep you still while he took off after her and the money.
He said he was dissatisfied and was going back.
Oh, why don't you call Norman and let him say just what happened? If he did give the man a hot lead and he just scooted off, it'll make the girl feel better, Albert.
At this hour?
He was out when I was there. If he's back, he probably isn't even in bed yet.
He wasn't out when you were there. He just wasn't answering the door in the dead of the night, like some people do. This fellow lives like a hermit.
Recluse, kinder word.
You must remember that business out there about 10 years ago.
I've only been here 5. Right now it feels like 10, but...
All right, then call. At least call.
Mrs. Chambers goes to the phone, dials operator.
Hi, Lowery. The sheriff wants you to connect him with the Bates Motel.
She hands the receiver to the sheriff. He takes it reluctantly, listens to the dim sound of ringing on the other end. After a moment.
Norman, Sheriff Chambers. Been just fine, thanks. Listen, we got some worries here. Did you have a man stop out there tonight? Well, this one wouldn't be a customer anyway. Private detective, name of...
Arbogast.
Arbogast. And after he left? No, it's okay, Norman. How's it been going out there? Well, I think you ought to unload that place and open up closer into the action. A smaller place, you know, but...
Please.
Sorry I got you up, boy. Go back to sleep. Yeah, I'd be glad to. Said to give you his regards.
Was that all?
This detective was out there and Norman told him about the girl and the detective thanked him and went away.
And he didn't go back? Didn't he see the mother?
The sheriff looks long at Lila, shakes his head sympathetically.
You should have called in the police the second you found your sister had skipped. You go starting private investigations using people you don't even know. And...
Well, what difference does that make?
Your detective told you a naked-faced lie.
Bare-faced.
He told you he wasn't coming right back here because he wanted to question Norman Bates' mother, right?
Yes.
Norman Bates' mother has been dead and buried in Green Lawn Cemetery for the last 10 years.
There's a long silence. Sam and Lila stare at the sheriff.
Uh-huh. I helped Norman pick out the dress she was buried in. Periwinkle blue.
You don't only look at history, Sam. It's the only murder and suicide case in Fairvale Legends. Mrs. Bates poisoned this guy she was involved with when she found out he was married, then took a helping of the same stuff herself. Strychnine. Ugly way to die.
Mm-hmm. Norman found them dead together in bed.
You mean that old woman I saw sitting in the window wasn't Norman Bates' mother?
Maybe you saw Mary.
I know the difference between Mary and an old woman.
Now, wait a minute, Sam. You're sure you saw an old woman?
Yes, in the house behind the motel. I pounded and called, but she just ignored me.
And you want to tell me you saw Norman Bates' mother?
It must have been. Arbogast said so too. And he said the young man wouldn't let him see her because she was ill.
The sheriff stares at both of them, and when he finally speaks, there is an almost inaudible tone or irony in his voice.
Well, if the woman up there is Mrs. Bates, who's that woman buried down at Green Lawn Cemetery?
Quick cut to interior Norman's parlor behind office night. Norman sits in the dim one lamplight, the phone next to him, his hand still near it as if he had not been able to move his hand after hanging up. He is staring at the shrike-like bird, which is perched on the lampshade. Decision and resolution are beginning to show in his face. Suddenly he rises, starts quickly out of the room, tries to switch off the lamp, and he goes in. So doing, succeeds only in knocking the bird off the shade. He watches it fall, does not try to catch it. It hits the floor with a thud and sawdust spills out. He stares sadly at it for a moment, then pens down, scoops up the sawdust, tries to press it into the split seam, picks up the bird, puts it in a drawer. Then he puts out the lamp, goes out, crosses the darkened office, and goes outside. Cut to exterior motel and house night. Norman comes off the porch, walks to the path and directly up the house, opens the door and goes in. Cut to interior downstairs hallway and stairway night, shooting up the stairs. Norman goes up, pauses one moment outside his mother's door, then opens it and goes in, leaving the door open. For a moment, we hear only Norman's low, quiet voice, his words indistinguishable. Then we hear the cold shot of his mother's derisive laughter.
I am sorry, boy, but you do manage to look ludicrous when you give me orders.
Please, Mother.
No, I will not hide in this fruit cellar. You think I'm fruity, huh? I'm staying right here. This is my room, and no one will drag me out of it. Least of all my big, bold son.
They'll come after you, Mother. He came after the girl, and now someone will come after him. Just, how long do you think you can go on, Mother? Mother, please, just for a few days, just so they don't find you.
Just for a few days? In that dank fruit cellar? No! You hid me there once, boy, and you won't do it again. Not ever again. Now get out! I told you to get out, boy. Norman, what do you think you're going to do? Don't you touch me! Don't, Norman! All right, son, put me down. Put me down and I'll go. I'll go on my own 2 feet. I can go on my own 2 feet, can't I?
During all this, the camera has been slowly creeping up the stairs. It does not stop at the top, however, but continues on the same high angle that we had in scene 57. She starts to laugh, a terrible sound like an obscene melody.
I'll carry you, Mother.
Norman comes out of the room, his mother held in his arms, her head leaning against his shoulder. He carries her down the stairs, along the lower landing to the cellar stairs, and then down those stairs to the basement. Dissolved to exterior Fairvale Presbyterian Church morning. In an overcast morning, but a sunny-faced crowd. The service is just over. There is contentment and peace, and just a little I went to church smugness in the faces of the churchgoers as they come out of the chapel and spread their separate ways away. Amongst the crowd, waiting and searching the faces, are Sam and Lila. In their expressions, there is no peace, no contentment. Camera moves in close. They are not speaking. Lila looks as if she had no sleep. Suddenly, Sam becomes alert, takes Lila's arm, starts toward the church. Camera moves with them, stops as they approach Sheriff and Mrs. Chambers. The sheriff stares rather sympathetically at Lila. Mrs. Chambers smiles nicely.
We thought, if you didn't mind, we'd go out to the motel with you.
Oh, he's already been.
Went out before the service.
Oh, have you two had breakfast?
And you didn't find anything?
Nothing.
No clear path?
Did he say anything about my sister?
Just what he told your detective. She used a fake name. She signed the rest, saw the register myself. Sam, shit now. I know you're not, saw the register myself, saw the whole place, as a matter of fact. That boy is alone there.
No, Mother.
You must have seen an illusion, Sam. Now, I know you're not the seeing illusions type, but no woman was there, and I don't believe in ghosts, so there it is.
I still feel that there has to be.
I can see you do. Sorry I couldn't make you feel better. You want to come to my office this afternoon and report a missing person and the theft? If that's what you want to do. Sooner you drop this thing in the lap of the law, the sooner you'll stand a chance of your sister being picked up. How about that?
I don't know.
Ah, it's Sunday. Come over and do the reporting at the house around dinner time. Make it nicer. You too, Sam.
She smiles brightly, as if having invited them over to discuss this year's charity fandango. Takes the sheriff's arm, starts away. The sheriff nods as he goes. Sam and Lila are alone now at the curb before the deserted chapel. For a long moment, they just stand there, their faces as gray and overcast as the sky.
Maybe I am the seeing illusions type.
You're not.
Sam takes her arm, starts walking her up the street towards the spot where his pickup truck is parked. Camera follows them.
Want me to drop you off at the hotel, or you want to come over to the store?
Lila does not answer. They reach the truck. Lila looks directly at Sam as he helps her into the cab.
I won't feel satisfied until I got out there, Sam.
Neither will I.
He slams the door, hurries around truck, gets into driver's seat, starts motor. As the truck drives off, dissolved to Sam and Lila and truck, process highway. For a moment, both are silent. Sam watching the road as if there were other cars on it. Lila staring at nothing in particular, except perhaps her own inner fear.
I wonder if we'll ever see Mary again.
Of course we will.
Alive.
Sam looks as if he'd like to say something humorous, something to cheer her. He cannot. He remains silent.
We lived together all our lives. When we woke up one morning and found ourselves orphans, Mary quit college and got a job so I could go to college.
Where'd you go to college?
I didn't. I got a job too. I wonder if that hurt her, my not letting her sacrifice for me. Some people are so willing to suffer for you that they suffer more if you don't let them.
She was willing to lick the stamps.
Lila looks quizzically at him, is too concerned to pursue it.
I wonder so many things about her now. Why she never told me about you? Funny when you think there's an answer to everything. You think you know all the answers.
We're going to get married. Are going to get married.
Do you know how I found out about you? I found one of your letters. It was a nice letter, Sam.
This is the old highway.
I suppose when you were able to marry her, she'd have presented you all shiny and proper. She's always tried to be proper.
Watch your tenses.
Huh?
She always tries to be proper.
Sam slows the truck to a stop, sighs, starts to light up a cigarette. Lila looks questioningly and impatiently at him.
You going to wait here for me?
I'm going with you, but we better decide what we're going to say and do when we walk in.
We're going to register as man and wife and get shown to a cabin and then search every inch of that place, inside and out and outside.
You won't believe it, but this will be the first time I've ever pulled up to one of those man and wife renting cabin capers.
I believe it.
The truck starts to drive on, cut to exterior of the Bates Motel on house day. The place is empty and silent and washed dirty by the deep gray of the cloudy sky. We see Sam's truck turning into the driveway and pulling to a stop. After a moment, Sam and Lila get out of the truck. Fresh angle. Close on Sam and Lila as they meet on the porch side of the truck. The motel office and the house beyond can be seen in the background of shot. Sam and Lila merely stare for a moment, then turn and gaze up at the house. There's no figure in the window, and the shade is drawn. Sam goes to the office door, peers in, knocks, opens door, enters. Lila remains on the driveway beside the truck. Cut to interior of the mother's room, day. Close angle on Norman standing by the window. He has pulled the curtains very slightly apart, is staring out and down at the motel, his eyes studying the lone figure of Lila, who is standing by the truck and looking up at the house. Norman studies her, and as her eyes look up at this very window, he closes the curtains, turns away. We see the suspicion and fear in his face, the surge of panic, and his struggle to contain it. Then he goes away. Camera remains on window, shooting out and down, and through the frail curtains, we can see Sam as he comes out of the motel office and joins Lila. Exterior, motel office, close on Sam and Lila.
I wonder where Norman Bates does his hermiting.
Someone was at that window. I saw the curtains move.
Sam takes Lila's arm.
Come on.
He starts with her toward the path which leads to the old house. Camera pans with them, and as they turn around the office corner, they see Norman coming down the path toward them. They pause, and Norman pauses. He does not smile nor speak. His usual grin and soft friendliness are gone. Containment and impassivity lie in their place.
Just coming to ring for you.
Suppose you want a cabin?
We'd hope to make it straight to San Francisco, but we don't like the look of that sky. It looks like a bad day coming, doesn't it?
Norman walks past Sam, giving him the sort of quick, disapproving glance he gives a man who is obviously lying. Goes onto the porch and into the office. Sam and Lila follow Norman. Interior motel office, day. Norman crosses to the desk, goes behind it, takes the key to cabin number 12 off the keyboard. Sam and Lila have entered and are almost to the desk counter by this time.
I'll take you to
Better sign in first, hasn't we?
Sam eyes scan the counter, looking for a registration book.
It isn't necessary.
My boss is Paying for this trip, 90% business, and he wants practically notarized receipts. I better sign in and get a receipt.
Norman stares at Sam as if he'd like to yell at him, call him liar. Instead, he reaches under the desk counter, brings out the registration book. Lila moves closer, studies the book as Sam signs it. Sam signs Joe and Mrs. Johnson, the signature and city of Marie Samuels, and after it, the notation Cabin 1 can be clearly seen 3 registrations above Sam's. When Sam has finished, he closes the book, hands it back to Norman. Norman does not take it, starts out from behind counter.
I'll get your bags.
Haven't any.
I'll show you the cabin then.
As he starts from the door, Sam laughs. Norman stops, turns, looks at him.
First time I've seen it happen. Check in any place in this country without bags and you'll have to pay in advance.
Sam smiles as if at a funny remark, takes a bill out of his pocket.
$10.
Norman returns to Sam, takes the extended bill, is about to start out again.
That receipt.
Norman goes reluctantly behind the counter, lays down the key to cabin 12, takes a receipt book out of the drawer under counter, starts to write. Lila steps up to the desk, picks up the key, quickly starts out.
I'll start ahead.
Norman looks up, gazes her as she goes out the door. Exterior of the motel, day. Lila comes along the porch, pauses before cabin 1, tries the door, opens it. She closes it quickly as she hears Sam and Norman coming out of the motel office, continues on down the porch.
Don't bother yourself. We'll find it.
He goes on down the porch, doesn't even glance at cabin 1, walks quickly and catches up to Lila just as she reaches cabin 12. Camera remains with Norman, who is standing by the office door, looking after Sam and Lila, his face alert and no longer impassive. He waits a moment. After they have closed their cabin door, then crosses to the pickup truck. Camera moves with him. He studies the truck, then leans in through the driver's window, twists the registration card around, reads it. It gives the correct name and address of Sam Loomis. Norman comes back out of the window, glances once more toward cabin 12, then at the old house. His suspicions are confirmed, and now there is the relaxation of relief in his face. He takes on a purposeful air, turns, strides up the path, up onto the porch of the house, opens the door, goes in. Interior cabin 12, day. Lila is at the cabin's rear window looking out, straining for a glimpse of the old house, which cannot be seen from the window of this cabin. She turns, frustrated, anxious. Sam is standing at the foot of the bed, staring at the smooth coverlet, his brow creased in a sadness.
We should have asked for cabin 1, the one Mary was in.
I'm glad we didn't.
He pulls his eyes from the bed, crosses to the desk, sits wearily, lights a cigarette. Lila watches him for a moment, feels a real compassion, goes to the bed, sits on its edge, turns again and looks at Sam's back.
We have to go into that cabin and search it, Sam. No matter what we're afraid of finding, and no matter how much it may hurt.
I know. Do you think if something happened, it happened there?
Sam, if you owned a useless business like this motel, one you probably couldn't even sell, what would you need to get away, to start a new business somewhere else? $40,000?
How could we prove? Well, if he opens a new motel on the new highway, say a year from now.
There must be some proof that exists right now. Something that proves he got that money away from Mary. Some way.
What makes you sound so certain?
Arbogast. Sam, he liked me or felt sorry for me and he was starting to feel the same about you. I heard it when he called in his voice. A caring. He wouldn't have gone anywhere or done anything without telling us, unless he was stopped. And he was stopped, so he must have found out something.
Sam considers a moment, nods agreement, rises.
We'll start with cabin 1.
He goes back to the door, opens it slightly, looks out, then back to Lila.
If he sees us, we're just talking, the air,
Lila
taking in the
goes
air.
to the door. Lila goes to the door. He holds it open and she goes out. Exterior of the motel day. Sam closes the door, joins Lila, takes her hand. Together they walk along the porch in the direction of cabin 1. Camera follows. They pause before the door of cabin 1. Sam motions Lila to wait, to hold still, then goes on to the office, opens the door, calls in.
Bates?
He waits. There's no response. He goes in and in a moment comes back out, closes the door, goes to Lila. She has already opened the door of cabin 1 and has started to enter. Interior cabin 1 day. The blinds are closed and the room is almost night dark. Sam comes in after Lila, closes the door behind him. For a moment, they just gaze at the room as if willing it to tell them some satisfactory story. Neither speaks. Then, in dark silence, they begin to search, going methodically and thoroughly through all drawers, the closet, the desk, searching under the bed and in the dark corners, not knowing what they expect to find, and yet expecting to find something. Lila opens the bathroom door, looks in. The windowless room is very dark. She switches on the light, goes in. Sam moves toward the bathroom, is about to follow her in when he notices which room it is and automatically catches himself up, backs out.
Sorry.
Hospital clean.
What?
The bathroom. Look at how clean it is. The one in our cabin is clean, but this is clean.
Sam goes in, glances around, nods. Lila goes through the medicine cabinet, finds nothing but a glass and 2 tiny tabs of soap. Sam leans against the door jamb, looks at the tub, the shower pipe above it. He continues to stare, more interested suddenly, as if bothered by some off-key evidence he can't put his finger on. Then he looks at the shower curtain rod and realizes there is no shower curtain. He frowns, is about to say something when Lila, who has been momentarily out of shot, interrupts. Sam turns, camera turns, and we see Lila is standing above the toilet bowl, a tiny piece of wet paper stuck to the tip of her right index finger.
What is it?
It didn't get washed down. It's figuring. The kind you tear up and get rid of? Some figure has been added to or subtracted from 40,000.
Sam lifts the piece of paper off her finger, studies it, takes out his wallet, presses the wet scrap to his driver's license shield, puts it back in the wallet, and puts the wallet away.
That's proof Mary was here. It wouldn't be too wild a coincidence for somebody else to, I don't know.
Bates never denied Mary was here.
Yes. But maybe this proves that Bates found out about the money.
Do we simply ask him where he's hidden it?
Sam, that old woman, whoever she is, I think she told Arbogast something, and I want her to tell us the same thing.
She starts out of the bathroom. She takes hold of her arm, stops her. Sam takes hold of her arm, stops her.
You can't go up there.
Why not?
Bates.
Camera starts to pan away from them, moves slowly over the room, very slowly.
Let's find him. One of us can keep him occupied while the other gets to the woman.
You won't be able to hold him still if he doesn't want to be held. And I don't like you going into that house alone, Lila.
Camera has panned clear across to the opposite wall now and is moving up closer and closer to the tiny flowered wallpaper, finally closing in on one small rosebud.
I can handle a sick old woman.
Now we see that the rosebud has been cut out, that this is the reverse side of the hole Norman peeped through to watch Mary. And we see the pupil of Norman's eye now.
All right. I'll find Bates and keep him occupied.
The eye moves away, and there's a brief flash of light before the hole is covered on the other side by the wall-hung painting. Fresh angle, Lila and Sam. They are about to start out. Sam stops her again.
Wait a minute. If you get anything out of the mother, can you find your way back to town? If you do get anything, don't stop to tell me.
Lila nods quickly, hurries to the door. Sam gets to it first, opens it a slight crack, looks out, then opens it wide enough for Lila and himself to pass through. Exterior of the motel, day. Angle, close on cabin 1 as Lila comes out, turns to her left, goes along porch toward cabin 12. Sam remains at the door, then turns right, heading for the path. As he passes the office, he is shocked to see Norman standing just inside the open door.
Looking for me?
Yes, as a matter of fact. The wife's taking a nap and I can never keep quiet enough for her, so I thought I'd look you up and talk.
Satisfied with your cabin?
Fine, fine.
Sam starts into the office. Just before going in, he glances down the long porch, sees Lila standing outside the door of cabin 12, waves her a tiny all clear signal. Lila, camera angle to include Lila and her point of view, she watches Sam disappear into the office, waits until she hears the door close, then looks about for another way to reach the house. She sees the small alley at the end of this L of cabins, starts towards it. Exterior rear of motel. SCU Lila, day. Behind the hotel, Lila hesitates. She looks ahead. Long shot, day. The old house standing against the sky. Close up, day. Lila moves forward. Long shot, day. The camera approaches the house. Close up, day. Lila glances toward the back of Norman's parlor. She moves on. Long shot, day. The house coming nearer. Close up, day. Lila looks up at the house. She moves forward purposefully. Long shot, day. The house and the porch. Close up, day. Lila stops at the house and looks up. She glances back. She turns to the house again. Long shot, day. The camera mounts the steps to the porch. Close up, day. Lila puts out her hand. Close up, day. Lila's hand pushes the door open. We see the hallway. Lila enters past camera. Interior downstairs hallway of old house, day. Lila closes the door, remains by it for a moment, quiet, listening. Her eyes scan the layout. The closed door, which leads off the hallway to the dining room, on to the right in the parlor on the left. Down at the end of the hall is the kitchen, the door wide open, the room beyond dim and silent. She notices the stairs leading down to the basement, stares at them, then back to the stairs leading to the second floor. She starts forward and seems about to investigate the parlor and dining room. Interior of the motel office, day. Norman is behind the counter, standing, staring at Sam, who is sitting relaxed on a small sofa. Norman has the look of one who is protecting himself, as if the counter were a protective wall against the threatening world across it.
I've been doing all the talking so far, haven't I?
Yes.
I always thought it was the people who are alone so much who do all the talking when they get the chance. Yet, there you are, doing all the listening. You are alone here, aren't you? It would drive me crazy.
Well, that would be a rather extreme reaction, I wouldn't.
Just an expression. What I meant was, I'd do just about anything to get away, wouldn't you?
Interior downstairs hallway and stairs of old house, day. Lila is halfway up the stairs. As she climbs, she is startled by the creaks and groans of the old wood of the steps. She steps more carefully. Camera remains at foot of stair, tilting up as Lila climbs. She pauses at the head of the stair. The door on her right, which opens into the mother's room, is closed. To her left is another door, half open. Directly before her is a third door closed. She holds a long moment, trying to picture in her mind which room would look out on the front of the house, decides, chooses the correct door. The one on her right. She goes to it, knocks lightly. Interior of the mother's room, day, close angle on door. We hear Lila's second knock, then faintly her soft call.
Mrs. Bates?
There is a quiet for a moment. Then the door begins to open and we see Lila. She stands on the threshold looking in at the room, instantly disturbed by it, almost chilled. Her expression indicating an impulse to close the door and go away from this room forever. After a moment, she enters, leaving the door open behind her. Camera pulls back and away, and we now see the room as Lila sees it. It is ornate, damask and mahogany, thick and warm and ripe, and olla podrida of mismated furnishings and bric-a-brac of the last century. The bed is four-poster, but uncanopled. The dressing table is fancy and flounced with satin. There is a great schnaufer, a big door wardrobe, a large oval full-length pier glass, this against the wall directly opposite the door, a satin reclamier, an upholstered armchair by the window, a white marble fireplace. It's great cold, but piled with ashes. And there is in the room an unmistakably live quality, as if even though it is presently unoccupied, it has not been long vacated by some musty presence. Lila glances at the bed. The damask coverlet is thrown over it, but it is not neat. There is the imprint of a body on it, a body which obviously has slept in a curled up womb-like position. Lila stares at it for a moment, then goes to the dressing table. Its top is scattered with boxes and jars of cosmetics and creams, traces of fresh powder, an open bottle or perfume, a comb, and a brush with traces of hair in its bristles. Lila moves on, catches a glimpse of herself in the pier glass, is startled, turns away, goes to the chiffonier, is about to open a drawer, sees the high wardrobe out of the corner of her eyes, goes to it hesitantly. She opens one door, fresh, clean, well-pressed dresses hang neatly. Lila opens the other door. The sweaters and dresses and robes hang freely, none in moth-proof storage-type bags. There is even a well-brushed collar of boxes. Along the floor of the wardrobe is a line of clean, polished shoes. Lila stares, then closes the door, turns, looks once again over the whole room, starts out. Interior the upstairs hallway of the old house, day. Lila comes out of the mother's room, closes the door behind her, looks down the stairs, then starts across the hall to the room whose door is half open. The room within is dark, the shades drawn full. Lila pauses on the threshold, reaches in, feels the wall, throws on a switch. Interior motel office, day. Sam has risen, is standing by the counter now.
I'm not saying you shouldn't be content here. I'm just doubting that you are. I think if you saw a chance to get out from under, you'd unload this place.
This place? This isn't a place, okay? This is my whole world. I grew up in that house back there. I was a happy child, you know? My mother and I, we were more than happy.
And now that your mother's dead...
Norman snaps his sharp, fast, ugly look at him.
My mother is not dead!
I didn't think so.
Interior Norman's room in the old house, day. Lila is standing in the doorway, staring at the room in sick dismay. The room is grotesque, a horrible, ludicrous fantasy of childhood held beyond the point of decency. It is a small room. The walls are fancied with romping silhouettes of teddy bears and sailboats and carousels and fat cows jumping over aghast moons. The bed is small, far too short for a man of Norman's height, and yet the rumpled covers indicate that it is in this bed that Norman sleeps. Next to the bed is an old-fashioned toy chest, On its top, there are a bird and cage lamp, a plain bound book, and an ashtray filled with ashes and cigarette stubs. A grown man's shirt hangs on a child's clothes tree. Against one wall, there is a narrow, high bookcase filled with thick, unchildish looking books. On the small white chest of drawers, there's an old child's Victrola. The record on the turntable is discovered, on close inspection, to be Beethoven's Eroica Symphony. Lila studies the room, fascinated and repelled. She glances at the bookcase, comes into the room, goes to the bookcase, and pulls out a thick, large, plain-bound book. She opens it. Her eyes go wide in shock. And then there is disgust. She slams the book closed, drops it. Interior of the motel office day. Norman, behind the counter, has moved back against the wall. Sam is still on the other side of the counter, but is leaning forward, his eyes hard on Norman's face. Norman's face is no longer expressionless. It has the stark, high sheen of a cornered animal.
You look frightened. Have I been saying something frightening?
I don't know what you've been saying.
I've been talking about your mother, about your motel, how you are going to do it.
Do what?
Buy a new one. In a new town where you won't have to hide your mother.
Shut up!
Where will you get the money to do that, Bates? Or do you already have it? Socked away, a lot of it.
Leave me alone!
$40,000?
Leave me alone!
He is close to panic now. He turns swiftly, dashes back into his private parlor. Sam goes quickly around the counter, follows. Interior Norman's private parlor day. Norman hears Sam following, wants to run, to never be reached by this man. He crosses the small room, drawn to the rear window, as if he might fly through it. Sam enters, pauses. Norman turns, back against the window, as unable to fly away as are the many still stuffed birds. Sam registers a brief flicker of reaction when he sees the birds, but continues to gaze at Norman hard.
I bet your mother knows where the money is and what you did to get it. And I think she'll tell us.
Something self-assured and confident in Sam's tone gives Norman a new, more terrified alarm. He turns his head, glances out the window at the old house. He looks back at Sam, and there is terror in his voice.
Where's that girl? The girl you came with, where is she?
Sam does not respond, smiles a half smile, turns to examine a stuffed owl. Norman looks back at the house.
Oh, God.
Interior upstairs hall of the old house day. Lila, shaken and disturbed, almost sickened, is coming out of Norman's room. She has left the light on. She pauses in the middle of the landing, looks at the closed door opposite the stairs, goes to it, opens it, sees that it is the bathroom, pulls the door to, turns, starts toward the stairs. Interior, Norman's private parlor day. Sam is lying on the floor, face downward, unmoving. A candlestick is on the floor, close by his head, still rocking as if it just dropped. Overshot comes the sound of Norman's footsteps, and camera turns in time to catch a brief glimpse of him going out into the office almost at a run. Interior stairway of the old house day. Lila is on the top step looking down towards camera. She is listening, hoping to hear some human sound, some sound she might follow, pursue. She hears nothing. She starts down the stairs. Just below the halfway step, she looks at the front door, sees out through the door window. Lila's viewpoint day. Norman coming. Interior stairway of the old house day. For a moment, Lila panics. Then she hurries down the steps, cannot go in the direction of the front door, remembers the stairway behind her, turns and runs in that direction. The sound of Norman bounding up the porch steps can be heard. Lila turns and dashes down the stairs, which lead to the basement, going down far enough to conceal herself, crouching there. Norman enters the hallway, closes the door softly, listens. He glances once in the direction of the basement stairs. He seems about to smile when suddenly all expression vanishes from his face. and he appears to enter a no place, no time state. He crosses to the stairway, goes up. Lila remains crouched on the basement stairs, listening to the sounds of Norman, his footsteps on the stairs followed by the fast noises of doors opening, of fast moving about an upstairs room. Convinced that he is searching the upstairs for her, she decides to chance an escape. She starts up the steps, is about to turn into the hallway when her eye is caught by a glimmer of light down in the basement. She pauses, looks down, sees the crack of light coming from behind the not entirely closed door to the fruit cellar. The swift moving sounds of Norman continue to come from upstairs. Lila's torn, knows she could get out of the house while she has the chance, is unable to resist the impulse to check that hidden looking room down below, a room in which she desperately believes there must lie some answer to what happened to Mary. She turns and goes softly and quickly down the stairs, interior the basement of the old house day. Lila reaches the bottom, stops, listens, hears the stairboards creaking as footsteps fall hard and measured upon them. She turns, pulls open the fruit cellar door, looks in. The woman is sitting in a comfortable chair. The back of the chair and the woman turn to the door. Lila calls a harsh, frightened whisper.
Mrs. Bates?
Lila goes into the room. Interior the fruit cellar. Lila goes to the chair, touches it. The touch disturbs the figure. It starts to turn slowly, swiftly, a clockwise movement. Lila looks at it in horror. It is the body of a woman long dead. The skin is dry and pulled away from the mouth, and the teeth are revealed as in the skeleton's smile. The eyes are gone from their sockets. The bridge of the nose is collapsed. The hair is dry and wild. The cheeks are sunken. The leathery brown skin is powdered and rogued and flaked. The body is dressed in a high neck, clean, well-pressed dress, obviously recently laundered and hand ironed. The movement of this stuffed, ill-preserved cadaver, turning as if in response to Lila's call and touch, is actually graceful, ballet-like, and the effect is terrible and obscene. Lila gazes for one flicker of a deathly moment, then begins to scream, a high, piercing, dreadful scream. And Lila's scream is joined by another scream, a more dreadful, horrifying scream, which comes from the door behind her.
I am Norma Bates!
Lila turns. Norman, his face is contorted. He wears a wild wig, a mockery of a woman's hair. He is dressed in a high-neck dress, which is similar to that worn by the corpse of his mother. His hand is raised high, poised to strike at Lila. There is a long bread knife in it. Lila, close on her face, she is dumbstruck. Her eyes are screaming. Back to Norman. As he is about to start forward, a man's hand reaches in from the doorway behind, grabs Norman's wrist. Sam comes through the door, still holding tight to the wrist, pulling back the arm at the same time throwing himself at Norman, football tackle style. A series of cuts, the fight. Norman and Sam struggling, the wild fury in Norman's face, the mad noise of his screams and vile curses, the terrified fight to the death look of Sam, the still staring Lila. Mrs. Bates, a close on her face. She appears to be watching and enjoying the fight. Over the shot, the sounds of the struggle, the screams of Norman, dissolved to exterior courthouse at reading night. There are many people gathered about the steps, the curious and the concerned and the morbid. At the curb, a couple of newspaper cars, 2 or 3 police cars, and a mobile unit truck from the local news television outlet. There is noise and chattering as questions are asked and answers given, and the sounds of traffic and of the television equipment being moved into the courthouse for on-the-scene reporting, and the stern voices of policemen trying to keep people back. The scene has a bright glare about it, that quality of sudden light thrown on a fearful darkness. Close angle on steps of courthouse. A policeman trying to make way for the television men, muttering, "Keep back," etc., to the spectators. A television man carrying a piece of equipment goes through door, and camera follows him into the courthouse vestibule. Here, too, there's a crowd composed of policemen, reporters, television men. The television men we have been following stops beside a policeman.
You think they'll take him out that way?
Probably have to. Besides, taxpayers hate it when something gets slipped out the back door on them.
Over this exchange, the buzz of other voices, the movement of men, camera moves on, down the corridor, gets to the door of the office of the chief of police, just as a young fellow with a carton box filled with paper containers of sent out for coffee reaches this door. Camera holds as the coffee boy pauses a moment, then goes into the room, cut to interior office of the chief of police, Night. Lila is seated in the chair. Sam standing close by, a bit apart from them. We see Sheriff Chambers in quiet conference with the chief of police, the county sheriff, the district attorney. The coffee boy stands in the doorway. Sam goes to him, takes a container of coffee from the box, carries it to Lila, checking the notion on the lid as he goes. Medium close on Sam and Lila.
It's regular, okay?
I could stand something regular.
Sam smiles encouragingly, hands her the coffee. Sheriff Chambers enters shot, gives Sam a container of coffee he has brought for him. Sam takes it, nods a thank you. For a moment, no one speaks. Lila looks badly shaken. Sam disheveled but contained.
You two can go on home if you like. Making that statement was enough for one night.
Want to?
No, I'm all right. I'll feel better when all of this is explained, if it can be.
Sam looks a question at Sheriff Chambers. Chambers shrugs doubtfully.
If anybody can get answers, it'll be the fellow talking to him now, the psychiatrist. Even I couldn't reach Norman, and he knows me. You warm enough, miss?
Lila's about to answer when she sees someone come into the room and rises anxiously. Sam and Sheriff Chambers turn, follow her gaze. Interior office of Chief of Police, full shot. A young man with a serious, frowning face has just come into the room. He is Dr. Simon, the psychiatrist. He goes to the desk where the box of coffee containers has been placed, takes up a container.
Did he talk to you?
Nope. I got the whole story, but not from Norman. I got it from his mother.
Everyone gazes at him, mystified. He speaks as he removes lid from coffee container.
Norman Bates no longer exists. He only half existed to begin with. Now, the other half has taken over, probably for all time.
Did he kill my sister?
Yes. And no.
Look, if you're trying to lay a lot of psychiatric groundwork for some sort of plea this fellow would like to cop.
A psychiatrist doesn't lay the groundwork. He merely tries to explain it.
But my sister is...
Yes. I'm sorry. The private investigator, too. If you drag that swamp somewhere in the vicinity of the motel, have you any unsolved missing persons cases in your books?
Yes, 2.
Young girls?
Did he confess to?
As I said, the mother. To understand it, as I understood it, hearing it from the mother, that is from the mother half of Norman's mind, you have to go back 10 years to the time when Norman murdered his mother and her lover. He was already dangerously disturbed, had been ever since his father died. His mother was a clinging, demanding woman, and for years the two of them lived as if no one else in the world lived. There was no one else in the world. Then she met a man, and it seemed to Norman she threw him over for this man. That pushed him over the line, the thin line, and he killed them both. Matricide is probably the most unbearable crime of all, and it's most unbearable to the son who committed it. So he had to erase the crime, at least in his own mind. He stole her corpse, and a weighted coffin was buried. He hid the body in the fruit cellar, even treated it to keep it as well as it could keep. And that still wasn't enough. She was there, but she was a corpse. So he began to think and speak for her, gave her half his life, so to speak. At times, he could be both personalities, carry on conversations. At other times, the mother half took over completely. He was never all Norman, but he was often only Mother. And because he was so pathologically jealous of her, he assumed she was as jealous of him. Therefore, if he felt a strong attraction to any other woman, the mother side of him would go wild. When Norman met your sister, he was touched by her and aroused by her. He wanted her. And this set off his jealous mother. And Mother killed the girl. After the murder, Norman returned as if from a deep sleep, and like a dutiful son, covered up all traces of the crime he was convinced his mother had committed.
Why was he dressed like that?
He's a transvestite.
Not exactly. A man who dresses in woman's clothes in order to achieve sexual change or satisfaction is a transvestite. But in Norman's case, he was simply doing everything possible to keep alive the illusion of his mother being alive. And whenever reality came too close, when danger or desire threatened that illusion, he'd dress up, even to a cheap wig he bought. He'd walk about the house, sit in her chair, speak in her voice. He tried to be his mother. And now he is. That's what I meant when I said I got the story from the mother. She thinks Norman has been taken away because of his crimes. She insists she did nothing, that Norman committed all the murders just to keep her from being discovered. She even smiled a bit coquettishly as she said that. Of course, she feels badly about it, but also somewhat relieved to be, as she put it, free of Norman at last. When the mind houses two personalities, there's always a battle. In Norman's case, the battle is over, and the dominant personality has won.
Lila begins to weep softly for Mary, for Arbogast, for Norman, for all the destroyed human beings of this world. Sam bends beside her, puts his arm around her, comforts her.
Chambers.
Andy Chambers is muted.
Yeah, and the $40,000? Who got that?
The swamp. These were murders of passion, not profit.
A police guard puts his head in the door, speaks in a near whisper to the chief of police. The guard is carrying a folded blanket over his arm.
He feels a little chill. Can I bring him this blanket?
The chief of police nods. The guard goes away and camera follows him out of the room and out into the hallway. Guard moves through the waiting men, heading down the corridor, cut to interior another corridor in courthouse. A narrow corridor in the rear of the building. In foreground of shot, we see a door, the top half of which is wire-covered glass. A guard in uniform is posted by the door, looking reprovingly at the 2 or 3 people trying to get a glance into the room. The police guard carrying the blanket comes down this corridor, goes to the door. Camera moves close. The uniformed guard opens the door, allows the man to go in. Shot is raked so that we cannot see into the room. After a moment, the guard comes out and the uniformed guard closes and locks the door, and we cut to interior Norman's detention room. Night. The walls are white and plain. There's no window. There is no furniture except the straight back chair in which Norman sits. In the center of the room has a quality of no awareness, of calm separation from the world. The police guard has placed the blanket on Norman's knees. Norman, as we come upon him, is lifting the blanket, unfolding it. His face, although without makeup and without the surrounding softness of the wig, has a certain femininity about it, a softness about the mouth, and a kind of arch womanliness about the brows. Calmly, Norman places the blanket about his shoulders, as if it were a cashmere shawl. Camera remains in a position so that our view of Norman is a full one. When the shawl is in position and Norman is settled, we hear, overshot, the voice of his mother coming from the calm of his thoughts.
It's sad when a mother has to speak the words that condemn her own son. But I couldn't allow them to believe that I would commit murder. They'll put him away now, as I should have, years ago. He was always bad. And in the end, he intended to tell them I killed those girls. And that man, as if I could do anything except just sit and stare, like one of his stuffed birds. They know I can't even lift a finger, and I won't. I'll just sit here and be quiet, just in case they do suspect me.
A fly buzzes close and then continues buzzing and flying about Norman's face.
They're probably watching me. Well, let them. Let them see what kind of a person I am. I'm not even going to swat that fly. I hope they are watching. They'll see. They'll see and they'll know and they'll say, why, she wouldn't even harm a fly.
Norman continues to gaze ahead into nothing. Scene begins to dissolve slowly to the swamp. As end titles fade in, we see the swamp, the chain of a tow truck. The chain is attached to Mary's car. The car is coming out of the swamp. Fade out. The end.
Wow.
Bravo.
Bravo, everyone, for sure. Whew. These older scripts with all the extra text are longer ones, but they are great. So good job, everyone. Thank you, Toni and Don, for reading so much. Rylan, great job playing both those parts. Everyone, I think, did terrific. Wow.
And Jacob for doing Sam, stepping up into Sam's position.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Anyone have anything else they want to say or talk about the script? Or
I thought it was very cool that everybody made the most of everything, even small parts, and I love that.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's interesting. A lot of the things they wrote back then in this one, which help reading it, but you wouldn't think they would write in a script or whatever, like some stuff that maybe can't be filmed, whatever. But yeah, it's awesome.
And it was in the narration was very cool. It was mostly narration, but I was picturing it and getting genuinely creeped out by it.
Yeah, it was really good. For those who haven't seen it yet, what did you think? I know Vicky's muted and others, but all right. Well, I know it's getting late and it's tired, so if no one has anything else they really want to say, last chance.
I did think it was interesting, like when they say nowadays, you don't write in action what you can't see. And there was some of that in there, which made it more interesting to read, I thought. But I guess it wouldn't be in a script these days.
I mean, they sometimes still put it in.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
There's, rules, but
Well, it depends on the script too, but that is something that is very Hitchcockian. He's very much a visual guy. He'd rather show you something as opposed to just blatantly putting it in your face.
Yeah, yeah. Even the details, like the there was no radio in the room where they opened the show, where Mary and Sam were having their affair, and the sign on the hotel said "a radio in every room." And then the stage directions make a point of the fact there's no radio in this room.
Yeah, it was, and the humor. I didn't expect the humor in this, but there was some of that.
There is one joke in there that's actually not in the movie, though.
Oh, which one?
The moment where Mary's talking about how she's going to go home. Well, okay, spoiler alert, in the movie, her name is Marion, not Mary. Point is, when Marion goes into her boss's office, she says, I think I'm going to, I'm dealing with a headache. And I can't think of his name. The big shot guy with all the money. Yeah. He's basically says like, oh, you should just go off to Las Vegas. She's like, well, I'm going to go to bed. Best. Nope. Like the only playground better than Las Vegas. Yeah.
That's not
that line actually never made it in the movie, even though Hitchcock wanted it in there. And then so in the remake, they did put that line back in there just as a way of saying like, hey, now we can do more with it. So let's put it in there.
Cool.
Oh.
Interesting tidbit.
Mm-hmm. Do you have more
insights?
Yes. Any of
well, like I said, this is my favorite movie of all time, so I have too many insights.
Yeah, let's hear some.
Okay. I'm trying to think of things that people might not know about this one. Well, for instance, for those who haven't seen the movie, which those of you who have seen it, you would already know this by now, but the whole shower scene, you never actually see the knife going into Marion. It's all illusion through montage. And that, in my opinion, anyways, that makes it a whole lot scarier. If you can be the one putting those thoughts in your head instead of the movie putting those thoughts in your head, makes it a whole lot scarier.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That's been discussed in some things I've seen and read on this movie and Hitchcock in general. And some of it was the constraints he was operating under at the time. There were things you could not show in a movie and have it get out into circulation. But other parts of it were his inclination to suggest and not, show things explicitly. And he does that in a lot of his movies.
And I guess the sound of the knife going in was like a watermelon they used for that.
I thought it was a tomato. It was something to that. Yeah, there were some sort of fruit they were
maybe one or the other or both. I don't know. Yeah. I'm trusting your resources more than mine, Rylan. So
I always thought it was a tomato.
We'll have to go back and listen.
I could be wrong.
I do want to congratulate whoever sent out the email saying that you've been cast, because I read it to my wife and said that check-in time is 5:45, no checkout time.
I was worried about those who hadn't seen the movie. I'm like, are they going to get what that means?
I've seen some horror movies, just not that one.
But it's a score that is so iconic. Even if you haven't seen Psycho, you know that. Song.
That chord.
That's another thing that, in my opinion, makes it so scary. Is that music? You can be looking away, you can be covering your eyes, you can do whatever you want, but that music is telling you what's going on. That knife is still coming down. It's just between that and the end shot of Norman just sitting there staring at the screen, just. Why she wouldn't even harm a fly. That just both those scenes are just like, but I love it.
And if you're also fans of South Park, they did a take on that scene.
Come on.
Yeah. They actually had a character ending in a room all by himself, wrapped in a blanket, saying, "I wouldn't even hurt the fly."
I think that's my favorite line of the whole thing. All of it.
Oh.
Let them watch me.
That's taken straight from the book too. Well, like it's not word for word, but it still is quite close.
Yeah, and I guess
if you want me really to get it deep into it, I can tell you the differences between the book and the movie. For instance, in the book, it's not just a straight up murder in the shower. Marion gets decapitated in the book. She gets her head chopped off. Yeah, the book's a lot more gruesome. Trust me.
And in the book, they have it as a old, overweight, bald man, I believe, right?
Yeah. Me and my wife are huge movie buffs, and we've actually gone into length as to why they changed Norman from the book, where he's this overweight man, to the tall, lanky Anthony Perkins that he is in the movie. And the first thing we were thinking is like, well, obviously, if you see the silhouette of a big, hefty man walking by, then you're like, there's no way that's a woman. That's Norman. So it's just,
I think he made the right choice for sure. And apparently the book is based off of a real serial killer, although it's still quite different.
Ed Gein.
I was actually going to say that if you happen to, the real story is Ed Gein.
Yep. Same guy that inspired Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs.
Not only by Norman Bates, but also by the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yep.
And there's a couple other ones. And if you go to Zach Bagans' haunted house in Las Vegas, they've got an entire room dedicated to the Ed Gein barn, where he would hang the bodies from the meat hooks and
that dude was nuts.
And make the masks out of them. So there's about 2 or 3 different serial killers that are based off of Ed Gein, and one of them is Norman Bates, loosely based off Norman Bates of Psycho.
Mm-hmm. But that guy, if you want to have a sleepless night, look up what stuff that guy did. Holy crap.
Thank you.
No, if you want to have a sleepless night, go watch The Birds. It'll scare the crap out of you.
Oh, I like
that one. Kate.
I know. I watched The Birds when I was in school. Actually, yeah, Raymond actually showed that movie. Rylan, can you believe that?
Yep, that was the first Hitchcock movie I ever saw. Yep.
I've never seen it. Mrs. Lowe. I think it was either Mrs. Robertson or Mrs. Lowe that showed it.
No, it was Mrs. Lowe, because she showed it to us too. And
oh, you guys went to school in the same place?
We did.
Oh, that's funny. So yeah, I've never seen it, but I liked that there was, to me, a reference to the birds because of all of the stuffed birds in his hotel. Was that from the book, or is that just that's in the Hitchcock?
I think he has the stuffed birds up in the book, but a lot of people are thinking like, oh, that's meant to reference the birds. It's like, no, the birds didn't come out until after. That was his project after Psycho.
Maybe it came from there or something. The idea of it.
What inspired
him? Yeah. Interesting.
That said, those are the only 2 horror movies that Hitchcock ever made. People always say, oh, he's the master of horror. No, he's the master of suspense. He only made 2 horror movies his whole career. Psycho and the Birds.
Yeah.
But he also made comedies, so it's not all bad things.
What's the other movie that starts with the ticking bomb in the car?
Oh, you're thinking of Touch of Evil. No, that was Orson Welles.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That is very much something he would do, though.
And that intro shot, that you can find the online breakdown of that, it's phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. Especially how it's all in one long shot, too.
Yeah. That was involved in ER.
Pardon?
Orson Welles. Is that the same Orson Welles that was kind of involved in ER for a while?
Probably not. Orson Welles passed away well before that show came out.
Much older, but yeah. You should look him up. He's famous for a lot of great things.
The greatest film of all time, Citizen Kane.
Orson Welles did War of the Worlds.
Yes.
In the 1930s.
And he terrified the world. They all thought that this was actually happening.
And a lot of people started committing suicide because they thought the aliens were really coming down to invade the planet. And it was a really big deal. It freaked a lot of people out. But that was Orson Welles.
Mm-hmm. My maternal grandmother was one of those people.
Was also Citizen Kane, Rosebud.
Yep.
Probably considered one of the best movies, if not the best movie ever made.
Mm-hmm.
And what were you saying about your grandmother?
My maternal grandmother got spooked by the Orson Welles broadcast because she was a little late getting home and turned Orson Welles on the radio too late to hear the announcement. So what she heard was, as far as she could tell, a real news report coming through. And she got her coat and purse and stuff back on and ran back down to the exit of the apartment that she was living in and was running out. And the doorman said, why are you leaving so quickly? And she told him, he said, no. They go back in. It's fine. It's just a radio show.
Wow.
But she bought it hook, line, and sinker.
Wow, that's amazing. So yeah, these movies can really affect us. But I know a lot of us are tired. It's been a long day, a long, great reading. Thank you, everyone, again. So we'll quickly go around again and have everyone say where people can find them if they want people to find them. Hopefully no Norman Bates.
Oh.
All right, Ms. Vicki Dykes, please.
You can find me on Facebook, Vicki Dykes. I'm on Instagram, YogaGrandma7. I'm an actor, so that's really what I do. And thank you for this opportunity. I really enjoyed being both Caroline and Lila. Thank you very much.
Awesome. I'm Jacob Patrick. Just come back here to Table Read Tuesdays, or my website is jacobpatrick.com. And Don.
Don Lampasone, and that's my website too, donlampasone.com. And just had a great time doing this for the last few weeks.
Awesome. Andy.
My name's Andy Hogan, and I don't have any personal websites or anything like that. I do have, there is the community theater that I'm very active in. The website there is www.rcctp.org. or we have a Facebook page, which is River Cities Community Theater Players. So you can look up on there for what we're doing around here, but it doesn't involve me personally.
That's great of you to share it.
I'd like to say just, I don't know if it's really important or not, but our community theater lost one of our best members. We found out just today. And it's really unfortunate because I kind of been looking forward to directing him in On Golden Pond next year, but I'm gonna have to start from scratch on that one, I guess. So.
Oh, I loved On Golden Pond. I'm so glad you're actually doing it. It's a beautiful movie. I mean, is there any way you could, I don't know, show us a video of it? Could you film it for us?
We always try to get video rights. Some people just will not grant them to you. So.
And my condolences on your loss.
Sorry to hear that. Sorry for your loss. Angelina.
Oh. Okay.
Sorry, I'm going by the order on my screen.
Yeah,
we probably all have different screens and different orders.
Yeah. So I'm Angelina Peterson, and you can find me on Facebook at my business, Your Adored Life, where I help people tell their stories on film, on video, for their to give as a legacy to their family, and custom family documentaries.
Very applicable. And Mary is muted.
Oh, Mary, we can't
Still
hear
muted. It's all good.
I'm sorry, I'm a little, I flew in from Ottawa early this morning, so I've been up since about 2 a.m. So I'm a little bit,
24 hours.
Just about. I do mostly indies. You can find them on IMDb under Mary Armstrong, and it's 10, like the X 10. So there's a lot of Mary Armstrongs apparently, but yeah, I'm on there.
All right. Heather.
Hi, I'm Heather Leigh Cameron. You can find me on Actors Access, IMDb, Heather Leigh Cameron, Creative Artist, which is Heather Leigh Freelancer. The Storm and Latter-day Saint. You can also find me on Instagram, Heather Leigh Cameron. I can send all the links in the Table Read Tuesdays chat in case y'all have trouble understanding the way I talk. And anyway, I just like to say I've been acting since I was a youth. I started in theater and I've been entertaining in various ways for years, and I absolutely love doing these things. I'm so grateful that I'm able to keep coming back, and I love working with all of you. And I just want to say, Mary, you remind me of Dolly Parton now with your hair all down and pretty, and I love it.
Me?
Yeah.
Dolly Parton.
Yeah, and Jacob Patrick reminds me of that dude from the Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego show with his costume.
She's just gonna typecast everybody by the end of this.
Well, Rylan, I loved your Norman Bates mob voice. Oh my Lord, I just got to hold my face in to keep from giggling.
Well, gee, thanks. I'm trying to be a crazy serial
Awesome. I just died because it was so freaking awesome. Anyway.
No, I still got that knife there. Don't make me use it.
Anyway, I loved working with all of you tonight. You're all amazing.
That was great. And Chance.
Thank you.
Had a really fun time. I really liked the script. I really liked the movie. Enjoyed working with all of you, and I thought Rylan did a really good job with the mother's voice. That was the part I was looking.
I had to make sure I didn't go comedic with it.
So that was really good. It kind of sounded like actually from the movie, and so I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. And Rylan.
Well, if I haven't put off anybody by my Norman Bates here, I am Rylan Nelson. Can be found just on the usual actor pages like Actors Access, IMDb, all those ones. I'm also on Instagram under Rylan086, and people have a tendency of spelling my name wrong, so I should probably make sure you know which way it is. It's Ryan with an L just stabbed in the middle there. Yeah, we're going Norman Bates stabbed. Yeah, Ryan with an L.
We'll remember.
I'm also on Facebook. I recently actually made a Facebook page just called Rylan Nelson, and then it's just got a dash actor/voice actor, just as a page just to help promote my acting work, I guess. So, yeah.
That's
Apart from
awesome. And you
those,
just won some awards, I saw, right? You shared that.
yes. Since I
Yeah.
worked with you guys last, I won a new, or I should say, another Best Actor award for my role in The Nobody Prayer. So
Fantastic.
I don't like to gloat about myself here, but it's like, hey, yeah, we've been really
That's
taking
what-
off with that film. So
Awesome.
I'm excited to see even more where we go with it. So
That's awesome. And we lost Toni. Toni had to run or something.
No, I killed him.
We have that
I told you I
recorded
still got that
here. This is
knife.
live or I'm just kidding.
I did want to mention, I thought Toni did a really nice job of narrating as well. I enjoyed her narration.
I think
Absolutely.
that's what's going on.
Oh, the narration is always so great.
And same
And she got to play a part as well.
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
Thanks for Don splitting it up with her so she could also play a part. Who was she? Was she the district attorney or she was
Yeah,
the
she-
investigator? private
Yeah,
investigator.
yeah.
And typecast as the attorney.
I'd also like to mention last week when the sound was issued, these beautiful people, the people that run this, they work their butts off so we could have the thing with sound. So thank you so much, Jacob, Angelina, and all the other people who run this stuff. My gosh, you guys are heroes. Kudos.
Thank you. And I'm glad Cypher Studios.
Camera.
Yeah, I'm glad Cypher Studios had things backed up where we could get the sound and the different videos separate and put them back together. So thank
Yeah.
you.
When I held up
You
the
did a
knife, my wife in the
fantastic job.
background was like, "That's not a knife." Pulls out a meat cleaver. That's a knife. Oh crap! Okay.
Different movie.
Yeah. Gratuitous wife cameo.
Yeah. Hi, wife. Just kidding.
That's the Mrs. Rylan.
All right. And on that note, everyone have a safe night, restful sleep, and we'll see you everyone next week as we travel outside of Kansas into a
Good night, North America. Stay safe.
Au revoir.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.